Awesome. So good morning, everybody, and welcome back to day 2 of the first ever edition of Program Management Summit Sync at Walmart. We are so glad to see you. And yesterday was awesome. We had some great discussions and I don't know, it was overwhelming. So Raju, how do you feel? How did yesterday go?
Yeah, welcome everyone. Awesome audience. I think it's been an extremely useful and insightful session yesterday. I would say a lot of support from across the board and a lot of interactions, I would say. Yeah. So Sri, what did you like? I think there are many sessions we attended, right? So what did you like? What's the most favorite one?
It's like asking somebody, which is your best program or which is your best child or which is your best parent. Sorry, I think every moment was awesome and I enjoyed all the discussions yesterday. So what about you? Do you have a favorite, Raju?
Yeah, I think my answer is the same thing. So it's been, I think we had about 3 sessions, right? So we started with the fireside chat. Hari and Anshu shared their thoughts on the program management. I think I personally learned a lot of new metaphors and analogies for program managers, right? Like a duck in the pond, the glue to the organization, conductor to the symphony, so whatnot, right? So and also learned about the contextual program management. So if you look at it, so there is no one size fits all kind of thing. So we keep the different arsenal in our pocket and then use it as per the context. So that's all about contextual program management. That's the second panel discussion we had. And we ended with the third one, which is all about the resilient portfolios, right? So I think all of you must have heard that term called anti-fragile. So how to be like that? So all in all, I think it's a wonderful 3 sessions packed with a lot of insights. There's quite a lot of learnings, I would say, something to ponder upon in the coming days.
Pond and ponder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So what is coming today, Raju? I think I want to know. I don't know about the folks. The count is increasing. What is in store for us today?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm ready to unveil what's in the day 2. I think it's been again similar format of panel discussions. We starting with some of the senior leaders in the industry talking about their point of view on the program management. And then we go to the emotional quotient, that's EQ, how it plays a role in the program managers and the program management discipline. So we want to hear from some of the fellow program TPMs in the industry as well. And then definitely wrapping up the day with another awesome session on the game changers, how program managers change the game. So that's the game changer session. So that's how we wanted to organize today's 3 panel discussions. So awesome. I can't wait to start the first one. Sri, I think you are the moderator for that session. So why don't you take it on and then proceed?
Right. So we are like that flight, which is on time every time. We have a minute to spare here. So Raju, have you heard of power nap?
Yeah, I take it all the time. Sometimes I take power nap at the Silk Board Junction.
And a power walk?
Yeah, that too. So yeah.
Right. Power yoga?
Power yoga is my favorite anyways. I just finished in the morning. So
Raju is doing a 21-day yogathon. So yes. Yeah, there we are.
Completed yesterday. So that's cool.
Right. So we are here with a power-packed discussion. So, all things power seem to be doing good, right? Power yoga, power nap, power walk. So good for muscles, good for brains. So here we are in a discussion with 4 awesome leaders. Let me introduce them one by one. So welcome, Mohit. You are our first panelist for the day. So Mohit needs no introduction. Mohit is the co-founder for InMobi. He's passionate about small ideas which turn into global power. Oh God, you have a power again. You the global powerhouses and innovation, simplicity, potential of technology. So InMobi is both a dream and a passion, right? So for Mohit, and Mohit's passion does not stop at technology. He's always on the lookout for ways, to make life easier. So welcome, Mohit. We are glad to have you here. And if you could share one thing about yourself, which we might not find on your LinkedIn profile, I think people would want to know.
So I think one thing that I would say during this COVID time, I have rather, I would say refound my lost passion, which is music. And I basically do DJing, in my free time, and I have a account at SoundCloud, and I just try to create music. That was always my long
Yeah.
lost dream.
Is it the dinchik type, or is it a trance type, or yeah?
So mostly my first love is EDM. So I generally do the EDM from this side of the world. But yeah, when in Bangalore, it's always Bollywood. So
Oh yes, Bollywood. Yes, can't ignore that.
yeah.
So welcome, Mohit. Nice to have you. It's our privilege to have you here today. And we introduce our second panelist, Ashish. Hi, Ashish. Hope you're having a good day. Yeah, you're on mute. So
Yeah, we can start to the
thank
day.
you. Cool. So Ashish, again, needs no introduction. He's the CTO and co-founder of Zest Money, India's first and largest AI-driven digital financing platform, right? There are like three big words: AI, digital, financing, right? So Zest is an Indian consumer leading fintech built on platform using digital banking, mobile technology, and artificial intelligence on cloud-hosted infrastructure. And before Zest, Ashish has worked with all kinds of giants. So he has been with Microsoft, with KPMG, with Veritas, with EMC Square, and Swiss Re Consulting. And Ashish has a deep love of technology concepts, right? And over the years, it has built into a passion. And we have him here, leading Zest Money. Welcome, Ashish. It's an honor to have you. If you could
Pleasure.
share something, yeah, right, so that we don't know about you.
Yeah, so what you won't find about me on LinkedIn is I'm a sportsman. I love sports. That's why I spent almost a decade in online sports betting industry because I love technology, passionate about sports. So for me, that was the domain from which I thought I was going to retire until I switched to fintech. But yeah, I'm a sportsman.
All right, nice to have you today. So we should bet on a successful discussion, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We'd like to introduce our third panelist for the day, Prashanti. Hi, Prashanti. How are you doing today?
Very good, Sri Lakshmi. Nice to be here.
Same. So Prashanti is the vice president and leader, the Chennai center head. She's vice president technology and center head for Chennai Walmart Global Tech India. We are a mouthful of a name. And she is working over there. She set up the office last year, and then she's spearheading innovation from the Chennai office. And she's playing she's making sure Chennai is playing a transformational role in the, transitioning all the way there and setting up this new office. She has vast experience in fintech, people system, indirect spend management, and associate digital experience. And before Walmart, she's had time with Capgemini, GB, and Optum Solutions. Welcome, Prashanti. If you could share something about you that we don't know yet.
What LinkedIn doesn't talk about me, very few people know, is I'm a farmer at heart. Got lost a few years with a busy technology career, but COVID tried helping me get back to the roots and start doing some of that again.
Okay, I didn't know, but we will harvest your ideas today, and I'm going to do all kinds of cliches. Apologies in advance for that.
Absolutely.
But it's a pleasure having you. And now we have Raghavan. Hi, Raghavan.
Hi, good morning.
It's awesome
good morning,
having
everyone.
you here. Yeah, good morning to you too. So Raghavan is the VP of Engineering for a business unit here with Walmart Global Tech India. He heads SAMS. He has a vast experience, 25 years of experience in retail, startups, and the whole spectrum of the domains. It is absolutely awesome to have you here with us, Raghavan. If you could share something about yourself that will tie our audience closer to you.
Right. One thing again, what you wouldn't find about me on LinkedIn is that I have a very deep interest in anthropology. And, I do a lot of reading and watching and researching on anthropology. And, I think that helps me get a perspective of things around. So that's a field that really, really interests me.
So I have to go back to my science. Anthropology, is it about bugs or is it just about the skeletal system?
I mean, anthropology at a more basic level is about evolution of everything that we see today.
Okay, didn't expect that. Evolution of everything. Okay, nice. So yeah, maybe we will start on that note, and it's a good note to start. And evolution, right? So thank you. Mohit, when we go back to evolution at the beginning of everything, right? There is a dream, there is an idea, there's an organization and some funding, and then I don't know, quite far away is TPM organization. So in your experiences setting up these organizations, when do leaders feel the need to have a TPM org? When do you feel established enough to start a TPM org?
Okay, so I think if I understood your question correctly, I will break into two parts. One is basically when do they feel the need to have TPM, and then when do they have money to have a TPM? So I think
Yes.
that is how I would put it, because I don't think that there is any substitute to having a better product planning, right from the beginning. And especially, I think when you are a very small startup, the most precious commodity you have at that point of time is time anyway, because you don't have money, you don't have people, so all you have is basically idea and the time. So I think the sooner you start, it's better. What happens in early stage is basically the function remains, because it is a very core fundamental part of how you build stuff, how you ship things, and how you be on time, and how you are accountable to doing something. It just so happened that in early days or initial days that that one of the team member plays that role. It could be founder, it could be founding CTO, or it could be the guy who is running engineering. But I think the time is as soon as you start shipping code, start building things, you start putting things on production. I think the function should be right there.
Okay. Right. So, is there any challenge or something when you are setting it up, right? So, how do you set expectations with the team?
Yeah, I think the biggest part, especially when you are small, the key things, a lot of people, you have a hustle kind of mentality, just herding people into a room, and there is a fun to it. But at the same point of time, sometimes this can go in all the direction. This could be all over the place. There is no planning. There's no structure to it. So I think, in my opinion, it's an evolution process. Someone has to basically, keep getting things into a rhythm. That's it's not about just slogging all night, or just having a round table kind of environment. But at the same point of time, how do we organize ourselves? And to be honest, if I look back, even in our case, I think we took a good year or more than a year to figure out what's the right rhythm and how do we do that. But actually, I see companies in today, because the learning goes on, and people have those kind of perspective now. I think they are able to do little bit of better planning. So if you see the time that was taken earlier to basically, have a takeoff and do something is relatively shorter now. So I'm assuming the main attribution for that is people are more planned early on. There's a clear direction that what needs to happen, and they are being accountable to each other, and somebody is doing and managing that planning. And once again, this could be any person. But I do think this function as a whole has matured quite a lot. And in Mobi, it took us good 3-4 years to understand the value, power, and everything. And more I think about it, I think this function is so powerful that if it's not done effectively, it can actually jeopardize your plan very seriously.
Yeah. I like to think like that and be very happy about my job. Thank you. But it is the truth. It is the truth. I think the way we bring things about. Sometimes it feels like magic. Sometimes it feels like pure hard work. But that is what it is. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll go to the next startup and next CTO that we have. Hi, Ashish. So you would also have hopefully set up a TPM org, or is there you have somebody playing that role? How has it helped your org, and when did you also find, is there anything different? Because obviously there are two different organizations, the way you function might be different. So if you could share your thoughts over there.
Sure. So having worked across different industries and different enterprises of different sizes, starting doing this for a startup was a very big change, because when you join a company, most of the time you would kind of already have a settled TPM function in place. But for startups, it's totally different. And I think I'll just echo what Mohit said, right? It's a function that is needed right from day one, but it need not be done by somebody who is an expert in a TPM on day one, right? It needs to be just done, as simple as that. So for us, when we started, look, every startup that we go through, that we have, has some phases or a journey that it kind of covers. You have 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. Those are the different segments that every startup has to go through. Same happened with Zest Money. So when we were at 0 to 1 mode, I personally was the TPM. I was the legal person. I was the CTO. I was the product guy. I did everything, including the TPM. So it was very much, it was very much, as you're building your product, as your team grows, as your different functions in your organizations develop and matures, it's very important to bring in a function that is going to be the cohesive part for the entire organization. So for us, the journey from 0 to 1 was me doing it. From 1 to 5, the VP of engineering and the product VP, they started doing it. And then slowly that started cascaded down to the product managers. And then we are at a stage where we are from 10 to 100, we have an established TPM function, which would kind of take care of everything that is needed. Now, what normally happens is, as a TPM or a TPM function, the focus is only on delivery. But for me, it is much, much beyond delivery. It's all about connecting the dots, connecting the organization, making sure that all the functions are working cohesively and in tandem. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's the output of that synchronization is going to be a timely, high, good quality delivery. But it is just much more beyond that, behind the scenes. So to us, it was a fascinating journey in terms of how the roles changed, how the responsibility kind of moved from one person to another, to a group of people, and then how it kind of evolved. Raghavan might love this. It's about the evolution of TPM within an organization. And we didn't rush. We took our time to understand what our blind spots were. I think that kind of really helped us build an organization with the right function, which kind of naturally evolved into a function in itself, a separate function in itself, and kind of ticked all the boxes that is needed to resolve the problems or issues which a growing organization would see.
Thank you for that. So yeah, Raghavan, we are sticking to evolution today, right? I don't know, it's our new buzzword. But when it comes to evolved organizations, retail giants, mature organizations, right? We do a lot of things, and it's no longer handing down the baton from the CTO to the product to program, right? So what do you think is the highest value add a program management org brings into a situation like this when you are looking at a mature organization?
I mean, mature organization.
The evolved program management in the evolved organization. The anthropology,
yeah, I mean,
all. Yeah.
All of this only make me chuckle. Evolved organization, evolved practice, right? These things one never really sees in reality when you go into the trenches. It all feels the same. And I was able to relate to everything that Mohit and Ashish were describing as the pains of a startup, right? Those still are very relevant to a larger organization as well. Probably you have a little more air cover, and with it comes the added complexity which compensates for any luxury that one may have in a larger organization. But more fundamentally, program management function is all about landing a change, right? Anything that we do is about landing a change. It could be a transformation program, it could be a platform migration, it could be introduction of new features. However you look at it, all we are trying to do all the time is about introducing changes. And this function is the custodian of landing a change successfully and gracefully, right? The larger the organization, the more difficult it becomes to land a change. Mind you, it is not more complex inherently because of the challenges that are complex. It is because of the interdependencies and the way things have kind of intermeshed with one another in a larger organization, it tends to happen. The larger the ball of yarn, the more tangles you would have, right? And hence, the more important the function of somebody who's looking to untangle it. So it takes a very similar skill that it would take in a growing organization. It's all about basically managing change gracefully, looking forward, understanding where the program team is getting into, and proactively looking to remove blockers and keep the engine moving. So in that sense, because of the intricate nature of how things happen in a large organization, the skill that would be required would be more about understanding the dynamics at play between various parts of the organization, reducing chaos, building clarity. How do you build a spirit of shared success? That's very important, because that is a very inherent advantage a startup would have, because shared success is a lot more tangible, visible to everyone in the organization, because everybody is within arm's length and eyes reach. That becomes a bigger challenge in a large organization, because the notion of a shared success is a little difficult to achieve. Then once you have that, how do you align all the moving parts? And more importantly, once you've aligned them, how do you keep them aligned? Because it has the tendency to exit into chaos at every opportunity. So right, so how do you keep them aligned? And when it is not, how do you step back and align the teams to the goals? And how do you objectively measure progress? Because that is another big challenge in a large organization, because the notion of progress is very difficult to achieve. So how do you measure progress? How do you build it very objectively? How do you draw attention to the issues at the right time? Because a lot of us, by nature, we want to try and avoid conflict if possible. Nobody goes looking for a conflict, right? So we want to avoid conflict, and that behavior leads to pushing issues under the carpet. Don't want to really face up to it, right? And here is a function which is at the core of surfacing issues, and that requires a very different order of understanding and skill. The ability to be comfortable about raising issues, because if the program function does not raise issues, everybody is happy dancing around those issues and assume that or act as if it doesn't exist. So it's about raising the awareness at the right level, drawing the attention to the issues, seeking those interventions, and bringing those changes that people are generally hesitant to make. Right? So that, in essence, is how I would think the program management function plays out in a larger organization. The fundamentals are the same, but the place it plays in is different.
Correct. So being part of this organization where possibly left hand and right hand are not aligned and you need to clap, yes, you need a program manager to help you do that. Agreed. And one last bit on evolution. So Prashanti, we would come to you, right? You had this recent 1 year setup, all energies going in for building up a new center. And when you build up a new center, you also need to establish a PMO org there. But you're not a startup frame of mind, because you have a mature organization. You probably have some processes set and stuff like that. And you probably are forming beta teams, and then they will break up into independent. So there's a different kind of challenge that I think you would have solved. If you could help us share, right? So when we are setting up a new center for an established org, what is the help you got from the existing TPM org possibly, and how did you go about setting up your own TPM org over there?
Thanks for that question. It actually is a mix of everything that Mohit, Ashish, and Raghavan talked about, right? I mean, Mohit talked about establishing the policies or the processes that are required, which are very relevant to a new center as they're coming up, which gives you a local flavor that's required for the center, right? Ashish was talking about synchronization. So important that everything that you're setting up locally needs to be kind of synchronized with the established center.
Mothership.
And absolutely. And then Raghavan touched very important point, which is all about change management as well, because suddenly the energies and the focus is on establishing the new center. So how do you really start relating? So I kind of used very conveniently everything that all three of them spoke about in my context, but all these three were very important. If I were to see the established center as a global and the new center as a local, right? There is very very important aspect that the global, which is the established center, gives you in terms of leapfrogging, accelerating, ensuring that you have location agnostic processes that are established. So you don't differentiate saying, oh, this is a new center and this is an established center, right? How do you really start bringing location agnostic processes is going to be very important. That's number one. So having an established center helped in making sure that we were not reinventing the wheel, but leveraging everything that was there in setting up the center. That's number one, right? The second one goes in terms of making sure that the local policies or the local flavor remains. Therefore, how do you go about picking the right people who can bring in that local flavor is also important. So as we were going through this journey, one thing that came to my aid is the whole setup that was there, and the goals that were required for the new center were already done by the existing team. So it was easy for me to kind of settle in, get into it, make sure that I'm focused on that goal and start driving it, right? As I was doing it, the established center program management team actually spent so much time with me in ensuring that we were failing fast, we were ensuring we are absolutely in sync, and also ensuring that we were picking the right talent that was required to establish the core team. So it took us about 6 to 8 months to go about doing this, but I'm very happy with the core team that we set up, because it was done as we were learning through the process and looking at, okay, forming and norming, is done, or norming and forming is done, but now how do I really sustain it and start looking futuristic? What do I have to do? Therefore, what skill is required and how do we really pick them? Was something that we worked together. What did it do in the whole process is the new team that has come on board, we were able to establish a stronger relationship with the existing teams in the established center. That's number one. There's a stronger collaboration. There are no surprises because this team now works in matrix. So everything that happens as an initiative in the established center kind of has, a subset in the new center, and all the time ensuring that, both of them are in sync and not out of sync. Because for the associates who are joining the centers, the location is an agnostic part. They just have to feel exactly the same way that they feel when they're, walking into the established center versus the new center. And I think we have been very successful in getting there, through the whole process.
Wow. So yeah, so there's a different level of focus, right? So I understood from all this whole discussion what it takes to set up, or what it takes to keep running in case of a mature organization which has already established itself. So if I move to the next topic of our discussion today, so Mohit, there are good days, there are bad days, there are good situations and not so good situations, right? So sometimes there's a possibility, a PMO org or the TPM org ends up becoming a catch-all. And while our core expertise is driving programs, but when it goes to catch-all, right, as engineering leaders, how do you perceive the problem, and how do you help us solve it?
I think that's one of the biggest I think the mistake that any organization can make, and it is most of us I think are here engineers, and it is just like not handling the exception at the right places and right loop at the bottom. That is just printing everything as null, and that is what a bad engineer does. Because they really don't have temperament, or rather really solving it at the right place. So in my opinion, any organization who is using TPM as a catch-all is just wasting a talent and really not making their team accountable. So I think every engineer should be very careful and watchful for this behavior, because it creeps very quickly. And this is where you will immediately lose accountability within your team, where people are not doing job and they're just relying on other person. If I were to give you a very good example, there's a So in US, we have a game, American football, NFL, and one of my favorite games. And it's very interesting. This is one game, which was very surprising for me because we have grown up seeing cricket and all those things. And once the player on the field, somebody would walk with a bottle of water or something to tell something. If they need to tell something, coach has to send some message and all those things.
Right.
So and that's an efficient process. You can only do a few times. But what happened in NFL? The most important player is the quarterback who is guiding the entire team over there. So think of him as the engineering leader, and then there is a coach who is outside of the field, and he's watching all the games, and he's watching how your opposition is playing, and he's looking what you are doing good, and he's also looking the mistakes that you are making. And then he has a mic that quarterback can listen to, and he's always talking. He's always telling, this is what you do. This should be your next play. This should be how you do it. So if I have to give you an analogy, so that coach is actually right now is playing a role of TPM. He has to win this game. He's responsible to make this team win the game, but he's not the player. He may not even play football. He cannot do quarterbacking. He's not a runner. He's not a defense team. But he knows what you're doing right. He knows what you're doing wrong, and he's making you accountable right there and then in the field in a manner where you still have time to fix it. You still have time to make it, and maybe by end of fourth quarter you can win the game. So in my opinion, I think this is the analogy that that I would use to simplify what is really the role of TPM. I think it's an incredibly important position because they are the one who will make sure that we are heading towards the North Star. We are making right progress, and in time we will get there. But at no point of time they should actually start assuming or start doing the job of other people. You will immediately lose the accountability, and in my opinion, that's a defunct engineering team, and practically nothing interesting will come out of that team.
Okay. And how do you get out of it once you are in that daldal or quicksand? Any advice for us?
As the saying goes, every problem is easier when you identify it early on and you fix it right away. So I think it starts with really setting up the clarity around this role, because many people, they do not understand. And there are many examples where some companies have leveraged this role very well. Microsoft, Adobe, and some of these guys, they have, and even I think Walmart possibly. They have really perfected this role, and how this is enabling them to basically be on time, doing the right thing, and having a very effective engineering team. So as soon as you see, the role of TPM is getting diluted by either deregulation of duties or delegation to a level where it's becoming a catch-all, and the first sign is basically if somebody wants to do a status check or review, there is only TPM sitting in that room with the engineering leader. Everyone else is gone. So yeah, I mean that's a typical sign. Or you're just calling a sprint and 3 people, 1 TPM and maybe 2 people who who just showed up, and rest of the teams are not there. So I think many symptoms, many of those things. So my advice to TPM and the engineering leader is you need to make this team accountable. You need to own. You need to make them own their own chunk. And once that is happening, then entire team is playing. And then there is no catch-all. If everyone is being responsible for themselves, I think the entire world's problem is solved. But that is the problem, with the human nature. We don't want to look at ourselves, or we just look at everybody else. He's not doing that. He's not doing that. But if we just look inward, I think that's where the solution lies in.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So correct. So there needs to be a channel to somehow percolate the issue up, and we are putting guardrails everywhere. So we have a robust process, and somewhere the problem is highlighted, I'm sure somebody can solve it. If not the TPM, the leader. If not the engineer, his leader or her leader, right? So fair. I think that was a very interesting answer, and it's a good takeaway. So if you have a robust process, at least even if you're falling into the muck, if I might say, there's a way to come out, and there's somebody who will pull you out and say, hey, something's going wrong. Good. Thank you, Mohit. So I will, now this is an interesting conversation, but if I move to you, Raghavan, right? We have these, again, I always talk to Raghavan in the retail mindset, and there are so many things we as program managers do. There are people who are always sunsetting systems. There are people who are always migrating. And the guy who's the person who's sunsetting, there's a counter person who's onboarding, right? I've written a new server, all my consumers come up here, and then there are people who are running horizontal programs. So while we are all program managers and in a way we are generalists, quite often we end up, becoming specialists. So is there a particular type of program manager, Raghavan, you think is probably missing or, should be there, because that is a good place for a program manager to go and contribute?
See, again, if you were to look at it in the spirit of program manager being the custodian of the change, we'll have to look at the skill sets in that context. Okay, to make it very simple, I'll give you an example. This is something that I came across. I experienced this last week when I and my friend, we had some plans, and I was going in his car, and he said, "Can we stop by my construction site? He is building a house. Just can we stop by a construction site for 10 minutes? I want to give some instructions." Okay. And, I was curious and asked him, "So what is that? What are you trying to do?" He says, "No, my daughter is complaining that her room is a little smaller than she wanted. So I'm going to talk to the contractor there and get it done." So he's kind of, of the belief that it needs to be done. And he goes there. And a number of people are already working on the site. The contractor has not come, obviously. The contractor typically, works on several constructions at the same time. So he has not come, and he has got at least 24 people doing various things, putting the brakes and what have you, doing a number of things. And he, speaks to some of the workers, and he says, this wall, it needs to move to the right by 2 feet. And it kind of makes the alley a little narrower, but it makes the room a little bigger. So 2 feet this side, and it seems like a very innocuous change. So, but this guy wouldn't do. He said because he stopped the people that were building that wall, and he said, "No, we can't raise this row anymore, and I'll have to get the contractor to agree." So we're saying, "Okay, when is the contractor coming?" He's coming in 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes becomes 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. That contractor is not in sight. And we start calling him, finding out where he is. He says, I'm there, I'm close, I'm here, reaching in 5 minutes. So finally he arrives after an hour and a half. Okay, we are all extremely impatient. And I'm so irritated that my plans are completely spoiled, because here this man said, "We'll stop by my site for 10 minutes. It's 1.5 hours, and still we are in the site." This guy comes and hears about the change. The contractor goes, "No, sir, it can't be done." Okay, he says it can't be done, and we had to wait for an hour and a half to hear that. He says it can't be done. Then we ask him, "So why?" Then he says, "Actually, that wall is a load-bearing wall, sir. You can't move it by 2 feet." Okay, wow, and it is there in the architect's plan, but this contractor has understood what it meant. Right? And he says it can't be done because it will compromise the structure. Okay. And then I realized that actually this guy is worth the wait. So I started talking to him to understand, what he does and how many constructions he has got going and so on and so forth. But in the meantime, my friend also is asking, "So, what is happening? You said you're going to procure, cement. When is that arriving?" He says, "No, sir, I've delayed it by 2 weeks." Okay. And he is irritated, saying, "What? You said you will buy it last week and you've still not bought the cement." He says, "No, sir." So he says that there is some, big problem in China, and construction business is going down, which is true, actually. There is this big construction conglomerate which is actually going down in China. It's causing a lot of instability there. The overall confidence in the construction industry has gone down, which means that the consumption has gone down, which means they import all their construction material, cement and steel and what have you. So it's a likely fall in the cement prices in 2 to 3 weeks. And he's saying, "I'll buy it for 10%, 15% lower when that happens." Right? And he does not know why. He says that, "I foresee that happening." Right? And then, my friend says, "So what can we do in the meantime?" He says, "What you can do is that I'll stop the plastering work because that needs cement. You can get the electrical contractor and do the piping work for the electrical lines in both the floors together. Okay, you can complete that, and they'll buy the cement in 2 weeks and start the plaster." And he says, "Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and also choose the paints, for the floor that has been completed." He says, "No, sir, don't do it." Okay,
I know.
because we are getting close to November, And November is the month when Asian Paints, usually in the preparation for the holiday season in December, they introduce new shades in the month of November. This is, you don't have to do it anyway now.
There, I'm
Okay,
going
the
to this
sampling and
guy.
buying, etc.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
look at, I'm talking about so many skills as I narrate this example.
Right.
Okay, you don't need to know intricately about everything, but you need to know something about everything
Right.
to charter this in the right course, right? So
Correct.
that is the kind of skill. So you don't have to be a specialist in anything. You don't want to be a person who is specializing in managing this kind of change or that kind of change, platform migration, introduction of, user facing. No, for you, it's a change. What you need is the skills to navigate that change gracefully. Right. So the context will keep changing, but the inherent skills that it takes to navigate this remains the same, and it can only get richer with experience. I hope I've answered your question.
Oh yeah, very beautifully. And next time we're building a house, I'm going to that guy. But I think the analogy was very clear. It's that Indian god with multiple hands, and everything is balanced. You are aware what is happening here, and there's always a plan B, like I heard. A faster way of achieving your goals without jeopardizing the final timelines. So there's a change within a change, and they are managing both of it. And the big picture remains constant. So that is program management lingo to what Raghavan just summarized here. Thank you, Raghavan. That was a beautiful example. So when we're talking of this God with 8 hands, Ashish, what do you want in those 8 hands? So what are the properties? What are the traits that you look for when you're probably choosing a leader to lead this organization where you want all of these like demigods, right? So how would you put it?
Okay, so I would say this TPM role is such an important role that I'm not going to look at only that person who is going to be leading that role. To me, if you want to talk about culture, okay, I think the TPM function plays a very big role in kind of propagating that culture to the length and the breadth of the organization. Okay. So to me, I would kind of look at, it's going to be as critical as somebody you're hiring as a VP of engineering for your organization. I'll put it that way. I may personally, I may not interview an engineer, an SDE1 or an SDE2. But if somebody as a TPM is going to start with, let's say, fewer years of experience, I would kind of put in my effort to kind of interview that person and select them. Why? For the reasons which I just mentioned to you, because TPM to me is not just about delivery. It is much, much beyond. And most of the time, when you look at a particular CV, when you are assessing somebody for a particular position, you look at the skill set, you look at their experience, what kind of enterprises that they have worked, and so on and so forth. To me, as I said, it's much more beyond just that, because of course that is very important. Don't get me wrong, that's very important. They need to be the usual stuff that comes along with it, which is they need to come in from a technical background. They need to have, they should have exposures to handle big budget projects. All those things are there. But for me, it's some of the softer skills is very important. So something like, I think Raghavan mentioned about it, right? I want somebody who would love to celebrate successes because that's part of the culture. The minute you kind of carry the team along with you to celebrate successes, it becomes a habit. And then when it becomes a habit, things becomes very naturally to them. And I think Mohit's point was about, you kind of get your engineering team to do the work that is expected of them. So how do you do it? Probably, and that's the most difficult thing as human beings, that we kind of get that we get challenged about, right? So how do you do it? That's where the TPM folks, I think that they come into play, and they have a very big role to play over there. So somebody who kind of can celebrate success, naturally it should come to them. I think that is a very important aspect for us. Another one is about being very pragmatic and being very non-rigid when it comes to implementation of process. And hence I mentioned, when you are as a company from 0 to 1, I don't want to bring in somebody who has got, let's say, 20 years of experience as a TPM to set the process on day 1. No, I want to do it myself, or someone else like me would want to do it ourselves, because the focus from 0 to 1 is completely different. You want to kind of you want to kind of ship your product as soon as possible. to your customers, so that you get a feel of what is it that they're expecting and what their uptake is. So I don't want process over there, but all I need over there is some kind of a synchronization and some very bit small element of policies to be defined there. When it comes to 0 to 1 to 10, you bring in more process in play because your function is going to increase, the number of functions are going to increase, the team size is going to increase, you'll have multiple branches, multiple releases, right? So definitely you need to bring in some kind of a release control and all those kind of policies in place, and hence it's going to be different. And when you're from 10 to 100, it's a completely different ball game. That is where you would want to create startup within startups, right? Walmart as an organization, you will have multiple such functions. But the minute you look at each of these functions as a startup, that's where you kind of simplify things. You can't go in with one size fits all kind of an approach. Every team is different. We need to kind of recognize that, and you should let the team be as expressive as possible and run the way which is best suitable for them, and not because somebody as a TPM says that my 20 years of experience says that this particular model works best, so let's kind of replicate it. No, it doesn't work like that. Every team is different. So the minute you recognize it, you would unleash the true potential of that team. They get more settled, and then that's where you begin to see the magic. So the role for that TPM is to understand that when and how you can let the team create magic, take them, handhold them, finger hold them, toe hold them, whatever you want, take them to that particular point. That's the second thing. Third thing, I don't want the TPM to kind of come in as the leader of delivery. No, they are responsible for the delivery, but the sense that they should bring into the team is, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to help. I'm here to unblock. I'm here to ring fence you guys. I'm here to, enable the communication between different teams, enable that synchronization, bring in that some kind of the local pits that Prashanti was talking about. So it's all about that skill which is very much needed to kind of manage and run the team. Yes, you will have your VP of engineering for your technology, you have your VP of product for your product management, and so on and so forth. But at an organization level, you need to have, I want that TPM to be the glue of the organization, and that is the most important aspect. And then innovation is something which I kind of look for in any person coming in. When I say innovation, innovations can happen in product, it can happen in technology, but there is a lot of scope for innovation within program management as well. It's all about trying out different methods, which would work best for a team, and then slowly introducing the team to them in a very subtle way. Changes is something which is happening all the time, but changes is something which most of the teams are very much worried and scared about as well. So it's all about striking the balance where you can do it, show it, and inspire that kind of a person who can come in, because to me TPM is leadership. TPM is a very important aspect which will drive how the company is going to go. And Mohit said, if all of us are chasing the North Star, I think TPM are one of the important functions for it. So, yeah, I mean, there are much more beyond that. I can go on for the next 2 hours, but then I know we are.
Yeah. So somebody once told me, sorry, they said you can talk about program management till the cow comes home. So, yeah, I think we can keep talking, and I do agree with the beautiful points that you brought out, and the concept when the organization grows and you are a startup within a startup, how to enable innovations, right? So it's a different game at each level, and all of us need to evolve with that and adapt to it, right? So we cannot be fixing, pushing a circle into a square or a square into a rectangle. No, you have to let the team grow whichever way is the best for them. And instead of constricting them, we have to enable them. So beautiful messages there, Ashish. And I would like to pull that into the next conversation that we have, Prashanti. So for this startup within an organization, or for this innovations, right? Enabling innovations. And when you talk of these terms, one new mantra is there: fail fast. And that's the thing that is going around, at least for some time now. So when we want a program manager to enable your fail fast mode, what are the traits that you look for, or how is it different for you from the regular program management? How do you look at it?
So the answer is very simple and crisp for me, right? I mean, there are only two things that I would expect a program manager to have to help us or enable us in the fail fast. One, the one who is very close to the problem and to the stakeholder sentiment of the outcome that is required, and what the sponsor wants is the TPM. He or she is the sole responsible person to ensure that we are staying close to what the sponsors want out of the program, right? So ensuring that they do not even miss a blink on this is going to be very important. So staying focused, staying very close to the outcome that is required, right? The second part is ensuring that they have a solution mindset, right? Understand what's going on. Raghavan's was an excellent example. He was jack of all trades, but he exactly knew what was required and by when it needs to be done, right? So it's like ensuring you understand what is being built, or looking at it, from a distance, I would say. Don't get into it. Like attached detachment or a detached attachment. It depends on how you want to look at it, but don't be part of the solution. Ensure that you understand that the solution that is being built is closer to what the stakeholders are looking for. And very important is the open mindset. Everything that all three of them again talked about, but extremely important that you have an open mindset. If you are doing all of this, and if you're trying to build in, runway for any dynamisms that come in, keep the team focused in terms of achieving what's been set up, with some room or runway to kind of accommodate any of these challenges. You will help the teams to get closer to what's required, or you will enable them to fail fast and move on to something else. So all these are something that I would look for in a program.
Basically imbibe, understand what we want to deliver, and then be true to it. So instead of getting deeply attached, right, the whole Buddhism or the whole Hinduism kind of thing, step out and be disconnected. So you can look at your own faults and you can recommend your own, fixes. Yes. So that's a different mindset, and that's what we think. The stronger or the more deeply you get entrenched, it is difficult to extricate out and look at a problem objectively. Once you are connected, you are no longer objective, and then it is difficult to find a solution. So yeah, it's the same property we're taking into go into an innovation hub. Thank you so much for that, Prashanti. At this point, I would, there are a couple of questions from the audience, and I'll start reading them out. So first one is coming from the startup point of view. So Sandhya has a question. As a startup, how do you make sure you're launching right features at the right time with the given market dynamics? At the same time, keeping everyone aligned on the organizational goals. So what are all the success metrics you look at? Maybe Mohit, Ashish, I just open it to you.
All right, I can probably make a start. So look, everything has to be around data. Okay, and the minute you use data and not your gut, then there is a chance that you will get most of your decisions right. So when you talk about what are the features that you would want to build as a startup, how do you prioritize that? Entirely has to come from data. Now, then the question is, how do you get data even before a feature gets built or feature gets launched? So that's where the customer engagement and that comes into play, because the minute you kind of do a lot of research, you do a lot of engagements with the customers, and typically, inviting them, let's say for a coffee, and kind of asking them about what are the things that they like about a particular product, and also do some kind of a blind spot game where you give them 3 options and say which is the option that you would choose, and you give them something in reward. So those are like invaluable set of data which you're going to capture, which will automatically provide, if you're going to use some kind of a triage for your prioritization, this data is going to be very much valuable for you to come and decide what are the features that you have to decide that you have to build. Then it just comes down to, so once you have defined that what needs to be built, it then comes down to how it needs to be built, which is a very technology and a product related thing. and doing a lot of A/B testing, build your product, build your features with a lot of A/B testing attached to it, so that you kind of also use the secondary level of data in terms of seeing, okay, before the feature gets designed, this is what the data says. Post it gets implemented, this is what the data says. So this also is going to help you in the future when you get to exactly the same stage of again, deciding which feature to be built and what is going to be the prioritization and so on and so forth. So again, the bottom line is pull in data as much as you can because data exists. The only problem is to identify the pattern on how to get this data. And the minute you have your data, your decision is already made for you.
Yeah, thanks. That's lovely. And it just ties with the data-driven decisions, right? So wonderful. I have a question and I'm asking this to Mohit, so it's not pointed. So Vaibhavi is curious to know how TPMs in organizations are helping, setting goals, OKRs and KPIs. Do they have shared ownership of OKRs or do they carve out their own objectives within a program or a portfolio?
I think I'm assuming that every company does it very differently, but at least what we do or what I have always followed is that entire team will have same OKR. It cannot be different for TPM or engineering leader or product and even business, because it's not about, even on engineering team, we are very clear. It's not about shipping the code and say, hey, my release is done and then I'm off the hook after that. I think even the function of product and engineering has evolved and it has changed drastically. End of the day, you all own that business metric. So whether if it's a OKR or a success key metric, I think it's all same for the team, and so does for the TPM as well. And I think Ashish, Raghavan, and Prashanti, everyone else mentioned over here. I think if one person where a highest level of EQ is expected, that is this guy, this person, TPM, because you have to really make a lot of people effective and meet their goal, or rather basically stick to their OKRs without them reporting to you. Because, I think to me that is an example of real leadership. And that's why I've seen, one company who has done really well and showed the power of TPM is Microsoft's. 80% of their business leader actually come from TPM role. It's very hard to get to, by the way. It's very hard to be successful in that role in that company, and eventually those people, they become GM because they know how to work with cross-factor team and make them hit the business metric. It's not about doing a release. It's not about doing a launch. It's about, if I'm launching Xbox, is Xbox is going to be popular or is going to meet the criteria that they have designed for the success. So OKR success metric, it needs to be same for every team, and TPM, in my opinion, can really do wonder, bring maturity into basically measuring that, keeping team honest and true to their goal and objectives.
Thank you Mohit, for that. So there are a lot of questions flowing, and I'm just going to go. Raghavan, maybe just you can take. So Shashi wants to know, how do you get the positive change coming in, given leaders are very busy in the critical agenda, and what is the focus, or maybe you might not be totally focused on putting processes in place, agile or whatever that the org is going through. So how do you make sure the change is happening?
See, the question, as I understand it, is about how do you initiate a positive change? Okay, when people are all so acutely focused on one outcome, right? I think that is where the trick lies, right? One of the things that I spoke about as an attribute of TPM is the ability to bring forth the risks, initiate the changes, and it becomes very important. In order to do that, one needs to develop a very good understanding of what needs fixing. Okay, a lot of times we don't talk about what needs fixing, right? And the nub of the issue is about having those difficult conversations to initiate a discussion around what needs fixing. And once you establish that something needs fixing, to follow through that and fix it is a relatively easier job. The bigger job is to help people understand and align that something needs fixing. So, to me, it goes back to establishing the need. So once you establish the need for a process change or whatever change it is, the follow through becomes a lot more easier.
Thank you. And this is the last one, so we are a little over, and I'm not very proud of that. But the questions are just flowing in, and you are great leaders here. So Prashanti, I'm taking this one for you. TPM is jack of all trades. They have to influence across the board, make sure product is delivered, and but there are chances that they become the unsung hero because the engineering team will lift the trophy or whatever. So how do you keep a TPM team motivated?
I think the answer lies within what was already said, right? Jack of all trades. So the fact that you are successfully able to pull the whole team together, the influence and the self, journey that you go through is itself one of the biggest learnings, because that's what is probably building you for what you can be as a resilient leader of the future. And so rightly said, probably Microsoft has done this the right way. So I think the key is about you looking at what you are learning from it and how you're able to kind of, steer such a large ship. Itself is the deepest appreciation you can give yourself. And that's probably speaks all of it. So it's all about how you take yourself and continue to keep yourself motivated versus somebody else coming and acknowledging it, because they have already acknowledged that you steered it in the right direction. You're only looking for an affirmation, which I don't think you should even worry about.
Yeah, that's going zen. And we are a little over, so I would like to wrap this up. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to hear your views. Thank you for joining us today. Mohit, I know you're joining from California. It's a little late in the night. So that's a little bit extra of torture or something that we have added to your plate today. Please go back, enjoy your dinner and your family time. Thank you all so much. This was a lovely discussion and we had some wonderful points coming through. I will hand it back to Raju because the next session is now late. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. What an awesome discussions over the last 45 minutes. I don't know how the time flew. Thanks, Mohit, Ashish, Raghavan, Prashanti, and Shri. Definitely, you moderated really well, in sync with panelists, and made it really flow. So just quickly, a couple of takeaways from my side. I heard sync a lot in this session. So that's in line with our theme of the summit. So we had to be in sync with our close sync with our stakeholder sponsors and the team. That's important. And I think Mohit only mentioned about the analogy of coach quarterback for TPM to engineering leader. So that really stick with me. Yeah. Other things, I guess, yeah. So some of the key tenets TPMs can have and thrive if they have it is about that open mindset. Definitely change agent and then cheerleader there, and then definitely leverage the data to our benefit. And I think Ashish only mentioned, right? So if you look for the data, it is there somewhere. So you need to be creative about that sometimes. And definitely bring in the local flavor, because one size doesn't fit all, right? So that's when you are building the team, leveraging the best practices without reinventing the wheel, right? So that's what it is. And jack of the all trades is coming up again today also, generalist versus the specialist discussions that we had yesterday. So overall, I think a pretty insightful session, I would say. Thank you all panelists. So I think we build the quite a bit momentum. So let's go to our next panel discussion. It's going to be equally interesting one. It's about I think emotional quotient, emotional intelligence while driving the programs, and what it means, right? So let's hear from the panel. It's going to be moderated by Divya Reddy. She's the TPM at Walmart. So Divya comes with a lot of experience and a skilled program manager and a strategist working in different domains over the past few years. She's currently in the Walmart Traffic Foundation programs in GTP systems. So she's been certified in Agile, Lean, Safe, and various other programs like PMP as well. So I think one interesting thing is like she's mentor and advisor at startup business strategy and investments, loves working and interacting with diverse cultures. So without further ado, Divya, take it on for our next session, emotional quotient in program.
Thank you, Raju. Good morning, all of you. I'm super elated today, and we all are emotionally bound with ups and downs, especially with the new ways of working. It is not easy for us to understand the emotions when we sync with our stakeholders and reciprocate it the right way. I'm sure all of you face this day to day. So while emotions are within, the intelligence speaks its way. So I've realized this during my journey. So as per research, a person's emotional intelligence may be a better predictor of performance success than one's own intelligence. So let's make the session more interesting by talking to our industry program expertise on their opinion on supercharging their program with EQ. So before any delay, I'll start with my first speaker, who is Jayashree Nagraj, who's a group program manager at Intuit. She manages the portfolio of programs that deliver key customer and business innovations for products across Intuit, such as TurboTax and Mint. She has over 20 years of software development experience across India, Singapore, and US, including over 10 years in program management. She loves mentoring budding program managers and tech talent. So welcome, Jayashree. We are glad to have you here today.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Divya. It's wonderful to be here and appreciate the really comprehensive introduction. Yeah, look forward to our discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Jayashree. So our next speaker, we have Ashwin Roswell. He leads the advertising and marketing technology programs at Walmart. As a technology leader, he has over 17 years of industry experience in engineering and technical program management. He has also led product development portfolio and digital transformation programs in e-commerce, B2C and B2B businesses. He's a PMI Agile certified and a safe practitioner with he has trained over 2,000 plus people across over 40 plus of workshops on creating best in class teams, speaking to sell and building innovation hubs. So welcome, Ashwin. Happy to have you here today.
Likewise. Good morning, Divya. Good morning, Jayashree. And yeah, looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Ashwin. So next speaker today, we have Shweta Chandra. She's an expert program manager with an exposure and setting up functions from scratch across different domains in the past. She's experienced in building, managing, and leading large teams across multiple geographies and team zones to deliver web, mobile, travel, and e-commerce products. At present, she is driving strategic initiatives for Flipkart. So welcome, Shweta. We're glad to have you here today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Divya. That was very kind of you. I'm very, very excited to be a part of this discussion because honestly, especially for this topic, because not many a times we are touching the emotional quotient kind of like topic and discussing it in the panel. So I'm very, very excited about this. And I really look forward to this discussion. And hey, Jayashree, hi, Ashwin. Good to meet you guys.
Okay, our last panelist, we have Praful Rao. He's an experienced Agile practitioner and Agile evangelist. He has a passion for helping people improve and realize their full potential through Agile. He has a thirst for knowledge, which he seeks to appease through reading every book, blog, and article I can find on organizational design, business psychology, organizational change management. So Praful is currently working with Walmart as a senior manager for technical program management. So Praful, I'm so glad that you're here today with us. I'm so happy to have you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Divya, and good morning, everyone. It's a wonderful topic, and really excited to be here. And what Shweta echoed that, this is not a topic which has been brought up, you don't hear much about it. So it's going to be, I hope it's going to be interesting one for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Praful. So before we get into this session, right, let's test how our panelists mindset or the emotion is, right? So when we talk about EQ, what is that one emotion that comes into your mind? Probably Shweta.
I think it is one of the most critical, trait for a company and a leader to have. So I'm very, very excited, as I said earlier. I'm very, very excited to discuss this topic in this forum, and where I know there are like participants who are the listeners who will be listening to us. It is very important for them also to understand the value add that this trait can bring into the individual's life. Also, these leaders will tone the culture of the company. So I think at a very holistic level, it's a very important topic that we are going to discuss. So I really look forward to this session. Yeah.
Thanks, Shweta. So how about you, Ashwin? How are you feeling today emotionally?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Just that battling with a little bit of cough and cold, part of, I think, today's life, right? That said, one emotion probably that comes to mind, what you asked, is thinking is surprise. We seldom as human beings love to be surprised, but as program managers, surprise is the last thing probably we want. So it's quite an quite an interesting emotion, to talk about.
Yeah. And Jayashree, your side, how you feeling today emotionally?
Yeah, emotionally, I think I'm curious to hear from everybody else and learn more about the emotional quotient. That's very important. And if I had to kind of talk about what would be a great emotion to have great EQ, I would probably choose calmness. So that's what I'm aspiring to, but right now I'm curious.
Oh, thanks, Jayashree. That was wonderful. I know it's very important to be calm, to balance yourself. So yes. So how about you, Praful?
I'm feeling excited. This topic is so exciting. So I'm definitely feeling very excited about the topic as far as my feeling goes. And one feeling, if I need to call out, I would say it would be empathy. Because I feel it's a gateway to to a lot of other elements which are needed for an organization, right? I mean, building trust and to start with. Right. So I definitely feel that empathy is something which, is a trait for every great leader to have.
Okay. Thanks, Praful. Thanks to each one of you for joining this session today. So let's get kick started, and probably I'll start with Ashwin. Ashwin, I have a question on why is emotional intelligence critical to us as program managers?
Okay, I'll try to answer the why part. I think how will evolve as part of this entire discussion during the course of the topics that we have. See, as Shweta said, we probably heard less of emotional intelligence or mention for a need of it, etc. But we've been hearing this word a little more often during the pandemic situation, where a lot of work has virtualized, and more so the nature of work itself and the speed of it, that has only increased. Given that situation, I would probably take a practical situation that happened in recent times in one of the programs that we manage here at Walmart, and maybe walk you through that, which will explain the need for why emotional intelligence is important, right? So this particular scenario was, we had to integrate an acquisition in under 3 months. There were two surprises though. One of them was this was not planned. This was planned 2 quarters down the line, so it had to be pulled up, right? And the second one was, this was right in middle of the pandemic, wave 2, which was around April, May timeframe. So that made it a lot more complicated. Now, if you get into the surface of it, even right now, you see a lot of change management over here, because you had to then restructure your quarterly planning. You had to get the goals of the engineers realigned, more so across the value chain, right? When it is stakeholders, interest and what commits they had to the business, the go-to-market teams alignment, the entire cross-functional teams that had to make their work and reprioritize in order to make this acquisition successful. So you see that entire stakeholder chain had to undergo change. So a lot of change management. What this does to the teams is then induces a lot of stress. And of course, there would be conflicts too. You can assume that because you've got multiple different departments over here with their own goals tied to the yearly OKRs, etc., which have to be sort of deprioritized to some extent. Now, when you do all of this, what happens is, as a program manager, my emotions are going to run high, right? And a multitude of them. When I was looking up yesterday, just about reading about emotion stuff, there were 25 different emotions. Now, on a day, you would go from ecstasy to depressiveness. You would get to that when you are executing at breakneck speed. Now, how do you control your emotions and then channelize that in such a way that will help you and your team towards success? Because this acquisition had to get done for the holiday season, because your holidays, cyber weekend is not going to change. So if you've got to get in time, we had to do it. Now, how part of it, I think we'll discuss, but you understand the nature, why it is that much more important for a program manager to understand the overall organization strategy, what situations they are in, and then bring in the multitudes of emotional intelligence in the form of empathy, in the form of understanding the overall organization needs, and then channeling them to people's expectations and all of that. And when you sort of enlisted me as a panelist, one thing that came to my mind was a book that I read about 6 months back. This was from Daniel Pink, called A Whole New Mind. So there he talks about this concept called, I think, high concept and high touch is what he speaks about. So high concept is all about the big picture thinking, weaving a story around it, then selling that. This is what TPMs to some extent are expected to do, because we are in the intersection of engineering, product, and design, right? And the interesting part is high touch, because he says these are the skills which will propel the next generation of workforce, and this will what will distinguish the good from the great, right? So high touch is all about empathy, understanding what makes people tick, and how do you then get the best out of people, and that is where the emotional intelligence comes into play, right? Now, I'll end probably in a fun element of it. So you would never see on a CV saying that, I would rate myself 4 out of 5 on emotional intelligence, or I'm extremely emotional intelligent. You will never see that on a CV. Yet, that's why I say this is a very underrated skill, but something that, differentiates between a good program manager or a good manager from an exceptional one. So that is why I would say probably emotional intelligence is one of the very critical skills in the future.
Thank you, Ashwin. I'm sure each of us can relate to the example and the stress that we faced during the pandemic. And this was really informative, and definitely it's very important to be empathetic. And I'm sure a lot of learnings from day-to-day experience. Okay. So now we'll move on to Shweta, where I know, Shweta, you have set up teams in your past. So what are the considerations while setting up an org, or what kind of maturity level to look for in your leaders, in your team?
Well, that's a great question, Divya. Thanks for bringing it up. So yeah, so let me just start by setting up some context on what my understanding of a PMO is. So I strongly believe that PMO is a department which is responsible to drive, orchestrate, and help build the strategic governance, standards, and execution in the company. Now, going by this, as you would understand, that it is just like the heart of the company. So it plays a very, very important role in setting up the transparent, progressive and motivating culture in the organization. So I have been very lucky that I got this chance to set up this function from scratch in 2 of the best unicorns in India, which is like InMobi and Ola. I just saw Mohit like in the panel before me. So Mohit, who is the person who hired me at InMobi, and followed by Ankit Bhati in Ola. So I have worked very closely with the founders and the core teams here. So now about the question which you asked, which is the considerations that I took when I hired the leaders, in my team. I think what I did was I raised the bar very high on hiring. So a few traits that I was very clear the leader must possess. I think to start with was empathy, because the way I define empathy is the ability to understand the needs of others, and it is extremely valuable for the employees and the leaders alike. Now, when I hired, I was sure that the leaders must have this need to understand the inner purpose that drives each of its employees and also align that to the organization goals. Now, as this is like this needed that the kind of interviewing that I did to identify a candidate like that. But once you identify the right candidate, not only does it create a better employee experience, but also it will reduce the turnover rates and build higher productivity. So that was one factor I was very clear about when I hired. The second I would rate would be attention to detail, where this leader should have that should be thinking through with a critical eye, and where he or she just minimizes all the distractions and just focus on the learning on what really matters. For example, if there's a pilot who the way that pilot will intensely concentrate, to land an aircraft such that that person just becomes completely immune to distraction. So because both of these companies, they Ola or Inmobi, they have very big ambitions and very high growth goals in mind. So there is a fair possibility that the leader might overlook a minor yet a very important problem, and that might just land up being very costly for the company. So that was one trait that I was very, very clear about. Then I would say that I looked for does this person thinks enterprise? And when I say that, it means that this person should be invested in the interest of the company rather than one's own function. So the priority should always be that, because eventually we are working for this one company and we have to ensure that we make it grow. And the last point I would say is the growth mindset, where this leader is always seeking for new opportunities, always focusing on overcoming obstacles, and just always open to learn. So that's how I just filtered or shortlisted the candidates in my team. And once I was able to build this team with this right hierarchy, I also ensured that I had this excellent framework set for communication architecture, where I did not I had like regular one-on-ones with my direct reportees, and I also did skip level one-on-ones, which is very, very critical to keep this smoothness. And lastly, I also worked on team bonding, where I really encouraged the team to have equality in conversational turn taking and also ostentatious listening, which is like if anybody is talking, it is good to just pay attention and listen rather than being distracted about it. So which eventually created that psychological safety in the team. And once psychological safety existed in the group, when they felt very safe with each other, they were really, I think I was able to unlock the best ideas coming from them, the ability for them to work together in a more cohesive manner, and more innovations and things like that. And they could like aspire high and achieve more. And lastly, I think I would like to probably conclude that I think I was able to create a culture of appreciation and belonging, and with a very deeper purpose. So yes, I think EQ played a very, very critical role when I built the team both at Ola and in Mobi.
Thanks, Shweta. A lot of key takeaways from what you said. So what is that one tip that you want to give to a growing or an aspiring leader?
I think, thanks, Divya, firstly. And I think that tip would be empathy. Because everybody, I truly believe that if anybody comes to any company, the person has the intent to work. So I think it is very important for this leader to connect with that person, ensure that that person understands this employee, also develops the person, and eventually it all boils down to this one thing, which is like, if I have a team, the day my team will grow, I will grow. So the leader has to understand that psychology very well for this person to really flourish. So I think I would say empathy is very important.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree on that. Thank you, Shweta. So maybe we'll move on to the next speaker on their side of experience, right? So Praful, I wanted to ask you, what are the three most aspects of EQ that you would bring in delivering a high pressure program?
So first of all, thank you for having me here. Before answering that, I would like to take a couple of moments, to bring some other viewpoint to this, right? So oneself, when they kind of get themselves to the organization, right? So they get whole of their mindset, and it's kind of related to the science that we have like two parts of the brain, right? Like the limbic brain and the neocortex brain, right? So it's very difficult to say that a neocortex is actually responsible for your cognitive, analytical, all those, like, you want to write some algos and all that. I think that's where, the neocortex come into play. But before that, you have a limbic brain, which basically, is involved in like, your behavior and emotional responses, right? So it's very difficult to segregate these two because they are part of you, right? I mean, it's not that, you can just take like, just the logical aspect of it and you leave the emotional aspect of it. That's why the EQ is equally important, right, in an organization, because, or for an individual, because they kind of represent themselves as a whole, right? And that's where it completes the loop, right? Because one leads to the other. Now, coming to your point, the three most important aspects of the EQ, which I think is important for a high pressure program, I would say one is about like the self-awareness, right? Which is all about like, how do you really, behave in a way that like, the others are inspired by you, right? I mean, that is like, how do you really, project yourself? How do your actions basically results in others' responses, basically, how do the other respond, right? So that is one. The other one, which is I would say, is like motivation, because, and again, like, motivation has three important aspects to it, which is about, having the autonomy and, the mastery and the purpose, right? If you bring these three elements together, that's wherein, the teams are actually motivated, right? So the EQ element also helps to bring those aspects into it, right? And the third, I would say, is the empathy, like, so what Shweta mentioned. It's very important, and I would admit that, like, for this session, I did went through some of, and I'm sure everybody did, but like, I did some extra research to figure out more on the EQ, which otherwise you wouldn't be doing, right? So, and I happened to go through a lot of, inspirational talks and motivation speeches. And one of the speech which really, like just got registered in my brain is, this talk from Simon Sinek on empathy. It's called Inspirator. It's like, I think 13-14 minutes video. So please do watch it whenever you can. There are great examples that he has talked about there. And one example that I'll just quote here is, Simon Sinek walks into the Four Seasons Hotel in Las Vegas. And then, he finds every other employee at that hotel is, being very warm and being very welcoming, right? And he happens to go and have a coffee at a barista, and then he happens to talk to the guy over there, and then, and he kind of strikes a conversation that he would never had at any other coffee shop. And then at the end of the day, Simon Sinek being himself, he asked that, do you really enjoy working here? And that guy says, I absolutely love it. And he says, why do you love your job? And he says, my manager comes every hour here and checks on me to say that, is everything okay with you? Is there anything that I can help you with? Right. So I think, it's very important for us to understand that, bringing these three elements, and like, especially the empathy part, it plays a big role. I think it's a gateway to, building a right culture to the team. It's very aspirational as well, right? So these are the three main elements, Divya, that I could think of. You're on mute. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks, Praful. And we were talking a lot about empathy. And one thing that you spoke about is self-awareness, which is very important. In today's world, we don't take time for ourselves to understand or to be self-aware. So what is that key takeaway that you would give on self-awareness?
Sure. I think one of the key takeaways, what I would say is like, which could help, the audience here as well is, whenever in an interview you're asked like, what are your strengths and weakness? That is the point where, it tells you that how well are you aware about yourself, right? So there is no direct question that you could ask on EQ, but there is a very indirect way that you could like, ask the folks or like the interviews basically saying that, interview is rather saying that like, what do you really love about, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? So that is the part where, the whole self-awareness comes into the play, because you could say that, hey, I'm a team player. I like, I do like doing this and these are my weaknesses. So that's how, you're like saying, the limbic brain actually comes into the play, right? So that is one takeaway that I would say is like, always relate these questions to how self-aware are you about yourself. And answer it accordingly.
Thanks, Rafal. That was really good. And I have a question on basically identifying triggers on other persons. So I feel probably Jayashree could be the right person. So Jayashree, I wanted to ask you, what are the triggers that you look for to identify and help your program team when they're struggling to cope with their delivery challenges?
Thank you, Divya, for the question, and a very, very relevant question. The space that we work in is fairly complex, and we are delivering some amazing innovations for our customers at really top speeds, right? Then you have the pandemic on top of that, which is another stressor for all the teams that are delivering to our customers and to my team or to your teams as well of program managers. And then we have talked about EQ and how I think naturally a lot of program managers tend to have higher EQ, and it brings in a certain amount of cognitive overload as well, trying to make sure that they're tuned in to their programs and their delivery teams and helping them as required. So a lot of this can definitely pile up, the stress that our teams have. For me, being able to, understand what stress my team members are going through or the delivery teams themselves are going through and being able to step in and help is very important. It starts with, having a great degree of trust and transparency as a culture that is set up. Shweta talked about psychological safety when she was setting up teams, and I think she was right on target there. So for me, it starts with ensuring that there is a high level of trust and transparency within my team, and also, ensuring that my team is taking this culture to the programs that they are leading on as well, right? So starts there. And then beyond that, it is important to have a good operating rhythm, right? Where we are looking at what are the key program goals that we are delivering, maybe represented as KPIs or key performance indicators, and what are the narratives that we have around these programs to ensure that we have a pulse, we have the pulse of the organization and that of the program. So to get into it a little bit further, having this regular operating rhythm will help us look at, let's say you have a program, and the program goals could be improving the number of customers that we have in our apps or in our products, or improving the retention of customers. So there are likely to be key leading indicators that tell you, well, how are we working towards those program goals, right? Having regular check-ins on understanding how we are doing on these key performance indicators. That's one. And then second is knowing what the narrative is on each of the programs that that our program managers are delivering. How are we doing on status? How are we doing on risks? Are there proactive risks that we are seeing that we are looking to actively mitigate? What are some of the decisions that are required or decisions that have been done? Now, having this operating system provides a sort of a framework that allows us to have a pulse check right? Or a heartbeat of the entire organization, the programs and the portfolios, and then our team as well, right? So it's important to sort of have this in place. And then what happens is that you are then able to tune into some primary and secondary signals to be able to detect potential triggers, right? So some of the primary signals could be the leading indicators around how are we delivering to our program goals or the KPIs, right? Or in engineering terms, it may be something simple like, how are we doing in terms of number of PRs or number of releases or number of check-ins? Or in program terms, it could be, how are we doing in terms of the issues and escalations within the programs as well, right? So these tend to act as primary signals that we are then able to tune into quickly because we have a sense of the heartbeat or the pulse of the entire portfolio of programs, right? So that becomes something to tune into and quickly step in and help, especially with a proactive sort of an approach. The secondary signal tends to be more, on a person level, right? Do we have the right level of engagement on the team? With that level of trust and transparency that's set up, and with regular check-ins that are going on with the team, and check-ins also with both individuals as well as the team. Now this becomes something that becomes a little bit easier to sort of pick up signals on. And do we have enough engagement from the teams, from the delivery teams, the program managers themselves? Do we see a lot of absenteeism, people being sick, or there may be minor or major cries for help in terms of escalations or requests for help that come in. So then we are able to tune into these secondary signals as well, to then be able to help our teams get back on track and be able to deliver and do the best work of their lives.
Okay, thanks, Jayashree. I'm sure this is going to help a lot of managers as well as the individual contributors from whatever you spoke, right? So I have a question on what you said. So how can one be proactive before the trigger occurs to one?
Yeah. I think that is a very, very good question. It's one thing to say, let's be proactive, but how do we ensure that we are able to stay proactive, right? For me here, it is critical to have strategic focus on what we are trying to deliver, right? And I think the baseline of, the emotional quotient, I think a lot of my panelists already talked about, having the empathy, having self-awareness, that is super important. But also equally important is being aware of what is the crux of, the program, right? What are the goals that we are trying to deliver to? On a day-to-day basis, there are a lot of fires that we are fighting, a lot of people that we are enabling, a lot of barriers that we are resolving. So it becomes very important to be able to cut through all that noise and still be have a laser focus or awareness of what is the program really about, right? And this coupled with the values of the organization, the cultural awareness, all of that, I think is what will allow us to be proactive in being able to help our programs as well as our teams.
Okay, thanks, Jayashree. That was very informative. Thank you. So I have a question on trust, right, which is very important for everyone. And I feel, Ashwin, you could be the best person to answer. So one of the key challenges that we TPM face is to win the trust of your program team and help them to open up to you and to share their slip-ups, right? So how does one build that environment?
Nice. So any question on trust, it's like $1 million question. So yeah, it's like when you do not have trust in the team, it's like a kite flying in a strong wind. So it flies high until the wind lasts. So I would probably quote some examples from my experience, what has worked for me. So in summary, I would say what has really worked for me is being part of that team. So once the team, psychologically, if the team perceives you that you're not in their league, what it simply means that if you are sort of detached from the daily ongoings of the team, then they perceive you out of their league. And if you start showing, that you're superior to them, either by means of your authority or the positional authority that you get, then they're out of their league. So if the team perceives you, any of that, you've sort of lost that entire trust game right in the beginning. What really helps is to be one of them. And I would probably anchor this on 3 or 4 elements that's worked for me, on how do you go about do that, right? So the first one is being very honest, very candid. It's easier said than done because it works when things are all, hunky-dory, it's going well. But in difficult situations, when your organization is probably downsizing, or you've got to let go someone in the team, or in simple terms, which always happens is you're going through an organizational change, right? Or the priorities change. So this is a pretty much what happens in any organization. When you do that, how do you paint this picture? Do you tell them very candidly of what's going on, or do you paint a very rosy picture? Because these are intelligent people whom you hired, so they'll see between the lines. And that's where, how do you be candid in difficult situation? So that's one element of it. Second, there are a few tips that's worked with me adjacent to this topic is involve them in your strategy discussions, whether it's you're doing an LRP or you're doing a white paper. Sit down with the entire team and go through it, right? That helps, because the team it's not just a prerogative of the leads and the senior management to involve in strategy discussions. Involve your entire team. Involve them in your hiring process. What comes out of your annual operating plan? This is how I'll build my team, right? Be open to it, get their buy-in. So now it's not about few hiring managers and leads who are building the team, but the entire team. It's not just about getting say referrals, but they know how the team is growing, how their career would grow, and they're very invested in it. So make them part of these strategy, organization building decisions, which will help you to build that trust within the team. So that's the first thing that I would say. Second is, show your vulnerability, right? This is also, largely spoken very loosely also. So if I were to give 3 practical examples of this, I would say, admit your failures. It needn't be a program as to fail. We would fail in small things during the course. Admit it. It's perfectly fine for you to do that. Second, say no to things. It's very easy to, fear of losing out. We would always say yes to a lot of things. Say no. Say, I don't know, if you don't know the information. Get the right people in to sort of, help you tide that. Now, what happens here is when a program manager, I exhibit that behavior in the team, that opens up similar culture within the team. So the team will be a lot more open and receptive to exhibit the same traits as you're doing. Now, you will get the right status. People will not fear to sort of tell that, okay, I messed up. They will not sign up for more than what they can do. They will also enlist someone else to do if they think they are a better person to do the job. So you see how one can influence by their behavior on the team, right? Third aspect is have fun along the way. Very important. Now, when you say idea of fun is, fun Fridays, have a virtual offsite, etc., right? I'm not talking about that. That's all good to have. But on a daily conversation, right? Encourage, when there's stressful situations, right? Encourage humor, right? Just break the ice. That's the best way to do it. And one of the examples I quote in Walmart is Sri Lakshmi, because who was a moderator of the last session. She's brilliant in that. So if you have humor as an element, use that a lot, or leverage people in the team who can do that. It can really lighten that up, right? And
Thank you, Ashwin. I'm acknowledging it. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
You got it on video, Ashwin.
I know. All right. No, that's a very important trait to have, which is again a very underrated skill, right? And the last thing that I've seen is if teams have gone through a failure situation and overcome that, that's where strong teams are formed, right? Because you have gone through that experience, and I've had numerous examples throughout my career where such teams have gone ahead and to excel largely. So create that environment, and if you've not failed, perfectly fine. Nothing succeeds like success. So celebrate success, celebrate your wins. This is a way to sort of keep the team motivated. And these are a few things that has worked for me from building trust, Divya. Yeah.
Thanks, Ashwin. Now I guess I should ask you some tough questions. So what is the stairway to winning Ashwin's trust?
Oh man. Okay. That's a nice one. I would say, yeah, maybe come trek with me or something like that. But yeah, that was on a fun note. But on a serious note, I think I'll pick up maybe what Shweta told on enterpriseness of the person, right? What I really like in people are who are invested in solving a problem for the company. Because then what that happens is, you can go along with them. You try to solve that for your teams, you solve that for your company, and then careers are made as well for yourself. So that's something that I really enjoy in people. And that's something, that I admire, which eventually builds trust between me and my team members.
Yeah, thanks, Ashwin. That was good. So while we speak about trust, the other thing that comes to my mind is failure. So Shweta, what is that one challenging situation is like facing a failure, right? There can be a blame game, there can be an ugly stuff and a lot of things that happens. So how can we make sure we are not emotionally impacted when we face failure or the consequence of it?
That's a very good question, Divya. And, I would like to add what Ashwin just mentioned, which is nothing succeeds like success. So I think we must not let success get to our head, but also we should not let failures get to our heart. So I think it is very important for us to understand that sometimes, actually, like maybe most of the times, things do not go as planned. And that is absolutely fine. That is perfectly fine, because failures and successes are part of life. Failures only teach us how to bounce back stronger. We learn lots from our mistakes, and they also, give us a lesson on how to value success a lot more. But to your question, where if somebody bumps into a failure or goes through that experience, I think the first thing that this is what I believe in. This is what my point of view is, and what I really encourage. And I've seen it working for me, and a few folks that I have been with. I think the first thing when anybody bumps into a failure is to just detach oneself, just step out of the situation and observe at the situation like a third person, and then analyze. It is very, very important for this person to be in present, because like being in present is a gateway to change and emotional maturity. And then I would say it is very important for us to embrace reality, because reality is like what is, the way things are. And the sooner we accept it the way it is, the easier it would become for us. Then I would say it is, once you have embraced the reality, it is very important for us to exercise responsibility. What is responsibility in my mind is to make the right choice on the way we think, act, or feel about that reality that we just encountered. And then also it is very important to clarify our vision post that, which is we should be clear that our vision is not clouded by the impulse or the circumstance that we are in. So where we define the moment, where we go deeper to understand the challenge. And then I think it is very important for us to act with integrity, which is this is actually a point where the rubber will meet the road, where no excuses, no whining, nothing. And you just have to face yourself in what you say and do, and align it with what you really want. So I think if we just be more aware about how to handle failure, it can be overcome, because see, anybody who goes through this experience will be vulnerable to the situation. So it is very important for this person to just think at it, look at it with a very objective mindset. Because in my mind, I define emotional maturity as the ability to make good, positive, healthy choices during the challenges of life. These are these challenging, difficult moments, and I call them like the key moments. And these are the moments which will define and develop that emotional maturity in one person. When the water is all placid and calm, it is all fine. But when it is like the waters are choppy and there's a lot of turbulence, is when the real maturity builds up. So and I would like to probably conclude this answer by quoting Winston Churchill, where he says success is all about going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. So it is okay. This is life.
Yeah. Thanks, Shweta. That was very interesting. In fact, I could relate a lot of it from my experience as well. And it's always good to look at the present and accept the reality than looking at the future or looking at the past. But yeah, a lot of good takeaways from what you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya.
So coming to you, Praful, I know you have handled a lot of difficult programs in Walmart and outside. So what is your formula for a successful stakeholder management, and how do we bridge that gap between difficult stakeholders?
Sorry. I'll probably quote, something from very recent experience on this on a high pressure program. So one thing which a program manager should always be looking into, or like should be aspiring to, is should never hesitate to call a spade a spade. Right. I think that is one quality to which a lot of leadership really believes in program management, right? Because we don't want to kind of put a picture of everything is looking good, or like, trying to cover for something. I think, and that's wherein it kind of brings in and makes the program manager as a trusted advisor. Right. So I think being a trusted advisor, calling a spade, calling out the issues as and when they arise, along with the mitigation plan, of course, right? It is not just about like, going and saying that, hey, we have issues and we don't know what to do, but like, try and leverage to find all the details around to see, what can be done, what support is needed, right? How can the leadership help, right? I think bringing in that kind of a transparency and bridging that gap, I think is a very key for stakeholder management for a program manager. And of course, this also kind of brings in a lot of, cultural elements to the organization, right? Because you are actually building trust and laying the path towards a stronger bond with your stakeholders, right? So they would just then go by what you're saying rather than like, relying every time a lot on data, right? Of course, data is always there, but like, you could always go back and say that, hey, my program status is at risk. I mean, like, that means that there is something which is really bothering, the program and needs a leadership intervention, right? So I would really say that like, these are some of the key takeaways is like, a program manager should be a trusted advisor to the stakeholders and to the leadership and to the stakeholders, should be very transparent and in the trenches with the stakeholders, right? So, I mean, you should be able to zoom in, zoom out. When it is needed, you are there with the team to really help them out, right? You're not like sitting somewhere up there and like, just getting a report from multiple stakeholders and presenting it. It's also about like being with them, understanding, what problems or blockers the teams are having and how could really help them. And also at the same time, you kind of, manage up with your stakeholders or with your leadership team by bridging that gap and bringing the transparency. So this is how I actually, would manage and did manage, some of the stakeholder management for my recent programs and projects.
Okay, thanks, Praful. And I'm sure handling stakeholders is the most difficult thing that we TPMs face day to day and across. It's not an easy job like what everyone thinks. So thank you for that. Thank you for that valuable answer. Okay. So while we are talking about this, one other difficult thing that we face is handling the TPM responsibilities during this pandemic situation, right? Which got a lot more difficult and a lot of meetings, I would say. So Jayashree, so the pandemic has been very harsh on all of us, and we are now balancing more things in real time as well. So how have you managed to find your inner peace and continue to deliver?
Yeah. Good question, Divya. it has definitely been an unprecedented 18 plus months, right? And overall, the lines between work and home have just blurred so much that it just feels like one continuous day where we move between different things. There's been a lack of social interaction, which has definitely made it very hard. As a family, we don't have too many events or outings, so it just, yeah, it definitely been a hard time during the pandemic. There have been days where it's been hard to balance and still stay grounded, have the right EQ, be able to deliver and be available to family as well, right? So absolutely. One of the things that I would say has kept me grounded is the fact that, when I look at all my friends or colleagues at work, and whether it's in India or in a different geographical location, it just feels like we're all facing very similar challenges, right? Because of the pandemic, and this has really helped everybody be more empathetic and supportive of each other as well, right? And that has been very helpful. There is almost a sense of we're in this together, and we have a common enemy, the COVID virus that we need to overcome. So that has been very helpful in having, I would say, a greater sense of purpose as well. That has acted as a motivation. Beyond that, I would say, like any good program manager, I delegate as much as I can to, especially on the home front, to my family whatever I cannot delegate, we look at simplifying or automating that as well. So that approach has helped quite a bit more than ever, right? And overall, I think between at home, especially given that work is now at home, there is definitely a good sense of, a better sense of understanding of, hey, with my family, I have my dear husband and two boys at home. They know very clearly that it's important for me to be happy and have less stress from them at home. And I know, and they know they'll get a lot back from me if I'm in that mode. And overall, I think likewise, it's important for me as well to check in and make sure that they are doing good and everything is working fine and they feel motivated through small means. That sort of keeps me on track and helps me sort of find a better balance during my day. I would say the other interesting thing is that the pandemic has blurred a lot of gender roles at home as well, right? So that has really brought in the sense of we are in this together, whether it is, and we need to enable each other to do our work as well as to sort of keep the motivation going at home. So that has been very helpful. And if you take companies like Intuit and maybe many of the companies that the panelists are from as well, they've offered extra time off, right? To ensure that we are able to help our families as required and find that balance as we also deliver to our goals and to our customers. The other really good thing for me has been, Intuit has made a lot of mindfulness sessions available during work. So taking just a few minutes off in the middle of my day, it could just be an app or it could be, something that we're doing with other colleagues or friends, but just taking a few minutes away in the middle of a day to practice, mindfulness. It could be as simple as, deep breathing, or it could be a more guided sort of meditation. That has also helped bring in a sense of calm, right? And it's helped improve my focus as well. Lastly, I would say this is something more personal for me. I find that if I do something creative in my day, right? Something more hands-on, something more creative, I find that I am a lot more motivated and balanced and calm, to deal with anything that might come my way. So those have been some of the things that help me sort of manage the various things that come our way and find a sense of balance and calm.
Thank you so much, Jayashree. During the beginning, you told that one emotion that comes to your mind is calmness. I can totally relate to what you said, and especially the pandemic. While we talk about problems, issues, you answered it so well, especially in the calm way. Thank you so much. There are a lot of learnings from what you said. I really appreciate that answer. We have been talking a lot of questions, and I know I want to ask a lot of questions more, but I know we have questions coming in from the audience as well. Probably we'll try to pick few and we'll answer them on the call. So we have one question from Shalini Patnaik. So her question is, as we see digitalization, uncertainty, and changing needs in the market, which we need to adapt to, do you see any changes to the roles and responsibilities of TPM in the future? Do any of you want to answer this?
I'll go on it.
Yeah, thanks.
So, I think all the elements of these questions are, has been there forever is what I feel, right? Changing priorities and, digitalization, uncertainty, right? I think that's the world that we are living in today. And I think we are pivoting pretty much every day, as part of the TPM role. And I have seen this up and close. And for the folks who have been associated in certain programs here at Walmart, they can definitely, speak and vouch for that. Right. So, and that's what makes our life interesting is what I feel. Right. It's not like, I think we are gone away from the place where we are into the long range planning and it's exactly as what we have put up in the presentation or in the Excel sheet. Right. So we are anyways gone past those days. I think it's all about, how do you really pivot, how quickly you can pivot, how quickly you can have your teams understand the way the business is functioning, right? And being very transparent with them. I think one of the key responsibilities which I think should add to the TPM role is also about how do you really bridge that gap with the team that you're working on, in having them understand that, what you don't be in love with the feature or the product that you're working on, but have a uber goal of making the organization successful and trust your leaders on that, right? So because it's very important that people get associated, or the TPMs and the teams get associated, and they take it very emotionally when there's a change in direction and they have worked put their heart and soul in getting anything delivered, and because of the changing priority. So one piece of advice is to make sure that this is the world that we are living in. We are doing it for better. We are pivoting for better. We are changing for better. Right, and what we were working on is not probably relevant anymore for the organization. And I think bringing in that view of the change in direction is important and needed, and we all need to respect that and go with that. I think that's where I think is one of the key roles and responsibilities I think should be added to the TPM role in the current world.
Thanks, Praful. Thanks for answering that. We have a lot of questions and maybe I'll pick few more. Shweta, there's a question for you from Ramya Singh. So firstly, she wanted to thank you for the valuable insights that you provided. And her question is, what is that one key takeaway you took when you changed companies?
Firstly, thank you, Ramya, for the question and for the compliment. Yeah. So I'm also enjoying this panel as much as you are. So now coming to the question, I think one change one takeaway that I took when I changed my company, I would say was relationships. Because eventually when you move on from one company to other, all these releases and all you will manage everywhere. The work will be similar with a different set of problems. But what you really, take away, what you really nurture while you are there, and when you move on, what you take away are the relationships. So I think I have been able to build some very, very good bonds with some of the best leaders around and some of the great people around in the industry. So yeah, relationships. So that's again a part of EQ. again that emotional side of us. So yeah.
Thanks, Shweta. So probably we'll take one more before we wrap this session. So there's a question from Raghav BG. So probably I think Jayashree, maybe you would be the right person to answer this. So his question is, in this new physical and digital world, so he has put digital, that's good, world, what are the typical program manager paradigm shift we need to embrace? What part of old rules will not work anymore in the new normal world? So
great question, actually. And, I do feel like program management as a function is really maturing and evolving in a lot of companies in India as well. The importance of it has become even more clear now. I guess in this new world, I feel like one thing that we really miss on is the the connects with people that we really benefited from before the pandemic hit us, right? So that's something that I dearly miss. At the same time, your earlier question, Divya, around how do we balance and still continue to deliver on all that we need to do, right? So if you keep these two things in mind, I feel that sort of becoming the new normal. There is a lot of chaos that's even more real now than it was before, and there is a lack of that human connection as well. So probably go back to an old thing, which is around empathy and making sure that we are cultivating that even more than we were before. Probably start with that. Second thing, as a program manager, there is a lot of influencing that we are trying to do, and it becomes very, very important to be crisp and unambiguous in making your ask to your program stakeholders or to the delivery teams on what they need to do if there is an ask that you're making of them. So it could be something simple as, hey, I need this data by this date. Can you please make that available to us? There are a lot of asks like this that we do as program managers. So make sure that you are very, very unambiguous, making it black and white and making it simple for people to respond and to help move the program along or to help you as well. So I would say that is something that we are having to get a lot better at, is getting the attention of the people on the right things, making the message to them really, really clear and making it simple to respond. For me, it's been a bit of a learning to ensure that I try to learn to do these three things a lot more effectively than before.
thank you so much, Jayashree, for answering that question. I know we are over time. We have the next session lined up, but I really want to take this opportunity to thank each one of you for taking out some time and talking about EQ and its importance. I'm sure a lot of takeaways, at least for myself, I'm sure for the audience as well. So thank you once again. Good to see you once again in the future. And over to you, Shri.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, guys. I think it was a wonderful discussion. There were lovely takeaways that we had. Lead by example, build relationships, basically cultivate relationships, right? We might leave organizations, we don't leave humans. And our connects are what help us grow. They become our mentors, they become our coaches. I've had people who have left the organization and still said, you can continue talking to me and I will continue coaching you. And what better than that, right? They are not bound by the organization boundaries and they are still open to you. So that is my key takeaway from this discussion. Raju, just one key takeaway because you're a little late, if you would want to key in.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the panel, Jayashree, Shweta, Ashwin, and Praful, and moderator Divya. So definitely, I think they touched upon the what, why, and how of the EQ part of it. Really enjoyed the session, and I think without say, the key things are self-awareness, understanding of the triggers, being empathetic, and building the trust. Those are the few key things to build that EQ part of it. So with that, let's go to the final session of the day.
Right.
The topic is the game changers.
Correct.
Let's learn from the panels on how we can change the game and how we are doing it.
Good. So let me take over. I would like to invite Manoj here, and we are calling these folks game changers because they run PMO orgs. So they are the ones who can change the course of our PMO org, any PMO org, and bring in new personalities, new processes, and give us insights about how we are going to evolve as a team. I will hand over to Manoj. So Manoj, here is a senior manager, technical program manager. He has over 20 years of experience. He currently leads complex programs over here, delivering impact and value in technology and operations. And before Walmart, he has been with Yahoo, Oracle, and B Systems. Manoj, over to you. Please take us through.
Thanks, Sri. Good morning and a very warm welcome to our last panel discussion for the day. The topic for our conversation is game changers. Like we all know, there are several disruptive trends and technologies that change the way organizations work. Ideally, organizations view these disruptions as opportunities instead of challenges. Our ways of working in program management have continuously changed over time and will keep on changing. We know exactly how we will work today, but the question that comes to our mind is, do we know how we'll work in the future? What will be important? Or how can we keep on delivering the best results? The key thing here is not just to keep up with the disruptive trends, but also to anticipate them and see them as opportunity of innovation. Today, I have a very interesting panel where we'll not only be talking about how program management is a game changer, but also discuss what are the game changers in the program management space. Let me begin by introducing our first panelist, Anand Puranik. Anand currently heads the tech program management team at Swiggy. He's been working in the program management space for a decade now. Most of this has been with startups. Before Swiggy, he was at Flipkart, and he believes working in a program management role for a consumer internet company in India is one of the most rewarding experiences one can get. Welcome, Anand.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
Right. Okay, our next panelist is Sumit, who has an industry experience of more than 23 years. He heads program management at FreeCharge. His current passion is working on vision. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, his current passion is working on the vision for providing a complete digital experience of financial products to Indian consumers. Prior to FreeCharge, he was at Snapdeal, where he led various programs related to improving buyer experience, enabling a path to positive contribution margin and movement of infrastructure from commercial to private cloud. Welcome, Sumit.
Thank you, everyone. Good to be here.
Yep, great. We also have Meghna Shilgupi. She's the Senior Director for Technical Program Management at AppDynamics, with over 20 years of experience applying technical and leadership skills to improve individual team and organizational performance. Meghna has also held leadership positions at Informatica and Amdocs. Welcome, Meghna. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
All right. And our final panelist for today's discussion is Tathagat Verma. Tathagat heads strategy and operations at Walmart. And his career spanning 3 decades, he's been engaged in leading large, complex programs in high-tech domains. TV's had quite a journey, from being a computer scientist to the head of strategy and operations today. Welcome, TV.
Thanks, Manoj. Glad to be here.
Lovely. All right. So let me dive straight in, and I'll start with you, Anand. So the first question is, why do you think program management is still such a niche theme in organizations?
Sure. Thanks, Manoj. I'd like to share and talk about from my experience of having spent almost the last decade working at Flipkart and currently at Swiggy, where had an opportunity to work on a whole lot of different kinds of programs in the consumer internet space in India. I think most of us are users of a lot of the online platforms, whether we want to buy something or we want to order food, groceries, or something like that. When we are looking at, as a consumer, when we are doing some of these things, they seem so easy actually, right? You click a few things here and there and the stuff is there at your doorstep. Even with the massive scale, in half an hour, or nowadays, like I think I see people promising, to get stuff there in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes time, etc. But what happens really is, once you're working for a company like this, when you're not like an outside consumer, but working here, what you realize is there's a huge amount of complexity which is running behind the scenes, which powers a lot of this stuff, right? And when we're talking of powering this stuff, we are also talking of massive scale, right? So for example, for a typical Diwali kind of event which some of these e-commerce companies host, from what I remember from a few years ago, it could easily be like 1 crore plus number of orders to be delivered over a 3-4 day period across the country. Similarly, when you talk of, say, the food business, you're easily looking at maybe 500,000 or something close to that just for a lunch or a dinner peak on some good days. So we're talking of massive complexity and massive scale. These things run with a lot of systems having to work like clockwork with each other in order to run at this sort of scale and provide this sort of convenience to customers, right? And when you think of the org itself, which enables this out, what you'll realize is the org is actually very vertical in nature. And what I mean by that is, if you look at, say, the non-engineering part of the orgs, typically functions like finance or HR or delivery, operations, customer care, etc. They're all typically vertical silos which work, to do their stuff. And similarly, you will have another sort of a vertical in engineering, which itself will have a lot of different engineering groups headed by different engineering teams, etc. And what is not realized when you're outside is all of these teams have to work together very well to pull off some of these very, very big things that the company is trying to do. And those functions are very horizontal in nature, actually. Like, for example, if you think of running a big 5-day sale event with the kind of volume that I just mentioned, it requires a lot of coordination and teams to work very well with each other in order to make those things happen. When you think of some of the work which is extremely horizontal in nature versus the sort of a vertical view of the org, you realize that when you have to find an owner for doing some of these massive things at scale, there probably is no team which can really be held responsible as the single point of ownership. And I think what has happened because of that and because of this complexity, etc., is companies have realized that you need specialists in the form of program managers who can handle this sort of complexity, who can work with these sort of teams, who can pull off these sort of massive events or massive initiatives across the company in order to hit the end goals. You really can't give it to like one function head and say it's your responsibility. To me, that is probably the most niche part of what a program management function can bring to the org. To work with a lot of teams, to run this sort of complexity, to make people come together, to deep dive into things where needed, ensure the execution, the overall management, risk understanding, communication, all of those things to be gelled together by a program manager to make some of these things successful, right? This extremely cross-functional nature of the work makes the program manager a very specialist skill and a very important skill, I think. And I do feel that a lot of teams start understanding this from when they are a small startup. They may not see the need for it, but once they hit a certain critical mass, I think this function becomes extremely important. And that's the niche value which I see program management teams bringing in. When I say cross-functional stuff, I'm typically not talking of things like 4 or 5 different teams to work together. I think cross-functional itself has levels depending on where you are in the org journey itself. Typically, at least my reference frame now has shifted. So when I say cross-functional, I typically look at maybe things like 15 teams having to come and work together and getting some objectives solved. Even 15 is a small number sometimes. I have been on initiatives which required, for example, all the engineering systems to migrate in the data center and move on from a way of doing things X to another way of doing Y, which is like an entire engineering org having to do something. I mean, stuff like this cannot be done unless you have some very, very experienced program managers who can be that orchestrator, that glue, and the other things that we talked about and heard about from some of the people earlier. To me, that's the niche element which a program management function brings into the org itself.
Wonderful. So from what I hear, what you're saying is program management is that function that ties all these teams together to achieve goals.
Right.
Which is really beautiful.
Right. And these sort of bets cannot be taken. What I have seen and realized is many CEOs, CTOs, etc. They depend very heavily on a team like this, because if you want to make a large transformational kind of change in the org, or if you want to run some of these very massive horizontal sort of initiatives which cut across all the teams in the org, you need a very, very smart team of specialist program managers who can pull off these things for you.
Totally agree. All right. So my next question is to Sumit. So Sumit, what do you think are the new trends that you're witnessing in the program management space?
Hi. Okay. Manoj, so Anand actually covered most of it, I guess. This is like when we started our program management journey before some years back, and we started with project management, right? To some extent, which was about a project manager used to own a team, niche set of people doing a specific kind of things. And they were limited to a single project, possibly a single vertical, but maybe servicing multiple clients. And now, as Anand mentioned, right, now the program team needs to understand all the domains. They need to understand what is not just tech, but business, product, marketing, legal, compliance, right? Stitch them all together, understand each of them a bit deeply, as much as they can, right? And even when you talk about technology, as Anand was saying, it's not just one vertical. You would have different technology stacks. There will be front ends, there will be back ends. The front end itself would have different, let's say, different technology stack itself. Back end would have multiple different technologies as well. DevOps would be completely different. So as a program manager, they need to understand that tech. They need to understand the differences. They need to understand which resources go where, who should go first, who should go next, as Anand was saying, orchestrating it, right? So basically, yes, the stakeholders have increased. Just launching a small feature on the system, as Anand was mentioning, it could take up to 15 teams, it could take up to 30, 35 teams as well. Whereas a user might just see an icon on the app or icon on the system, and they say that, okay, I just need to book something. But what happens behind in finance? What should go first? Has the reconciliation been done? So a lot of things go out there. So to manage all that also, the tools have changed, right, from the past. So initially Excel's MPP was enough. Now you need to have those program management tools. Without those tools, you won't be able to manage all that stuff. So the work has gone complex. As Anand said, it's niche. We have more and more stakeholders to communicate with. Also, negotiation has become part and parcel of the job. Everyday negotiations, prioritizing, deprioritizing. Nobody's happy with program managers in the organization most of the time. So how do you communicate well? Take all the pressure off the tech teams. So the role is demanding and satisfying as well. So it's changed, but it's a good place to be.
Great. So what we're talking of here is management needs to understand tech as well as business together.
Yes, business, compliance, legal, and whims and fancies of everybody, actually.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting place to be in. Yep. Super.
Yes.
Thanks, Sumit. All right. So TV, the next question is to you. What are the qualities that you look for when you hire for leaders in the program management space?
Sure. No, I think first of all, we got some very good perspectives from both Anand and Sumit on really what are the imperatives of program management. And I especially like the fact when Anand called out, because all organizations are really built around vertical silos for not a wrong reason, because we are all birds of a feather that flock together. So you end up creating the vertical silos, but the customer doesn't really have the same view of the organization. The customer sees, because the customer value is created horizontally. So from their point of view, they couldn't care less about how we are organized internally. And I think it's really important for somebody to be a master of that intergroup coordination. I remember back in the late 90s, we used to talk of this when CMM was very new. We used to talk of intergroup coordination. That was one of the in the CMM model, it used to be a case. And then later on, we started talking about it as program management, and basically the idea was really to bring the varying stakeholders with their needs, bring them together there. So to your question, Manoj, I would say that there are a lot of functional skills. In fact, a lot of people think that there is more art to program management than to science. To me, it is like both the things are there, and depending on the context, you might need some of it more than other. But apart from the science part of it, which is like schedule management or cost management and scope management, risk management and other things, there is a lot of finesse that is really needed in terms of the soft skills and the personality factors there. So to be able to lead without authority, and that was one of the questions we had yesterday, I think it's almost always a very big requirement, because you are, as a program manager, do not have anyone reporting into you. You do not have the the traditional 5 bases of power that we talk of in terms of reward power or punishment power or title power. You have none of that stuff there, right? The only power you have is the ability to believe in yourself. So to that extent, I think self-efficacy, as Bandura's theory of self-efficacy is all about, I think that's the first most important thing, that you have to believe that you can bring the changes there. So that's number one. Number two is being able to lead with authority, lead without authority, or lead with influence is the key part of it, because you have to bring people together in a room and say, how do we do it together? And then leading at the peer level is yet another very important, very subtle differentiation. It's relatively easier for people to say when they are leading people who are in some sense junior to them, but then when there are people who are equally smart as you, or even people 2 grades above your pay level, I think that's really a very difficult task there. And the third thing is really being able to inspire the team and keep all the stakeholders connected, because by definition a program is almost always quarters, 4 quarters kind of a thing. And to me, a program is really more of a landscaping project. I mean, we are not really doing something which is like going to be done by night. It is a landscaping project. It has to take its own time. So you are not going to be able to demonstrate the quick results right away. Now, how do you really make sure that everybody, your stakeholders, your sponsors, are all on the same page as you continue to make the baby step journeys there and show the results there? So these are a few things that come to my mind, and we can talk more about it in the session, Manoj.
All right. So let me actually, get to Meghna, question for you. Where do you think program managers are traditionally not considered, but can add great value?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Manoj. So, couple of areas. I mean, see, as all of, I mean, Anand, Sumit, all of them called out a couple of areas that we are very expert in that. Most organizations, you will see that when there are no takers for any task, it will come in TPM's bucket. TPMs will jump in for any task, and they will be there to help, right? It's like we are treated like a superhuman being in most of the organization, right? So most of the TPMs are doing above and beyond, but there are a couple of areas where still there is much more we can do. As a TPM can add much more value. I'll call out a couple of areas. So one, definitely data-driven project management, which is more like a predictive analytics kind of a project management. So we do, all the TPMs do have a lot of data, we generate a lot of reports. So it is happening in one aspect when we say, we look at the historical data always. There is always some data to it when we do the planning. But when we look at this, traditional data-driven versus using the BI tools. Now, in a lot of organizations, TPMs, which is our program management, they sit under the productive. Now, there is always, I have seen a lot of organizations, there is a parallel org which is running the business intelligence teams. Now, as we know that, TPMs are connected at the root level for every team. So when we look at, as a TPM, look at this data and turn into the insights, that will really connect the dots. We can make much more, much more out of the data, take it to the respective team, what it matters. So something like this can be, taken to the next level rather than just, limiting it to some of this, Jira report or the, project management tools. We can definitely leverage TPMs to kind of leverage some of these BI tools that they can, they can take it to the multiple teams. So because TPMs do have this, transferable skills, which we can definitely use it and kind of, go to the next level and predict what can go wrong, predict the pitfalls, and then based on that, we can come up with the, solution in much more objective way rather than just the subjective. Way. So that definitely, I think, of course, some companies are already experimenting that TPMs are kind of helping, but this is still a little bit long way to go before it becomes part of the TPM charter. So that's definitely, I see one areas where TPM can help. There's one more area which is a little bit, definitely does not come under TPM bucket. I haven't seen in my past experience, but something for the engineering teams, upskilling or the reskilling. So imagine, I mean, most of the good organizations, we were employees for 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years. Now, when we have hired these engineers 5, 10, and 15 years before, we hired them for a particular skill set. Now, industry has evolved so much that we definitely need to look into reskilling these employees. Now, TPMs work with each and every team and they have a lot of data. They exactly know what each engineer will bring to the table. So we know what skills they bring to the table. Then we look at that data. We can, as a TPM or TPMO, can look at the data, marry that data into the product roadmap and the vision. Look at it, what we need. Identify the gaps of the skills. Either we can put the plan for coaching, or sometimes we will understand looking at the roadmap that this is the skill set we needed, but the other team have the skill set. Put an internal mobility plan. So if we leverage TPMs who already are plugged into every team and look at this data and understand the roadmap, we can definitely, as a TPM team, can do a wonderful job. So there's a couple of areas we can definitely leverage TPMs in a big way.
Thanks, Meghna. What stood out for me was, the data-driven project management or program management that you said, and also about turning data into insights, which is very helpful for teams as well as senior management. That's really insightful. Thanks, Meghna. Okay. Right. So Anand, just wanted to talk about trainings and certifications. So there's this wave generally. First it was CMM, then there was ISO, then we had CSM, and so on. And now there is SAFE. So what do you think is the new in thing, or which area of program management is underrated and can do with a good course?
Sure. Yeah, I think we've all been through that phase, haven't we? I remember when I think many people started off their career, CMM was the hot thing to go for, right? Everybody was trying to get a CMM certification done, and people would walk around with their, CMM certified company logo and things like that, right? And I think there are these trends. I think some of them are cyclic in nature. There's probably an element of a need and possibly something else also which drives some of these trends. I think some years back it was design thinking, I think. And I think if you didn't know about it, you probably felt really bad. I thought like, hey, what is this? And I have no clue about it. So I think these trends are very much there. What I have discovered over the years, as you journey through your career, that upskilling is extremely important now. And I would say probably every 5 to 10 years or somewhere in that range, the technology stack can completely change. And upskilling becomes very necessary. And as part of the program management function, while you may not be the tech expert, you still need to understand a lot of things. And the learnings probably come more on beyond a point, more or less probably easier to tackle areas would be things like technology, but the harder skills would be people related issues or handling conflict, working with people, etc. So I think I feel foundational capabilities are very important, but the journey of learning continues. I think you can't get to a point where you say, this is my skill set and I'm not going to learn anything more. If you do that, probably you're going to fall out of the race, I feel, because everybody is moving on to new things and you're going to get left behind. Having said that, I feel there's also a lot of foundational capability that somebody can build. And to that, I would suggest for anybody who is looking to be in the program management function by choice. And when I say choice, I mean, it takes some time for many of us to have figured out that we like program management itself. It's not like a typical engineering sort of a thing where you pass out of college and you want to become a program manager or a computer scientist or something like that. So for anybody who by choice is looking to be in this, what I would suggest is to definitely go in for a PMP certification. And I will tell you why. I took my PMP certification around 2007, I think, right? And what I realized, long after I had taken the exam, by the way, that time I was wondering like, hey, why do I even need this, right? But what I realized much later is that it gives you a foundational capability and a structured way of running programs, right? It defines out each area in the PMP function very nicely and sort of formally exposes you to how you can run programs, be it initiating a program, bringing in stakeholders together, or how do you manage planning, execution, stakeholders, risk management, etc. Right? So the most important benefit that I had, which you can use on your job for the rest of your career, which is a very foundational capability, I feel, and it benefits a lot immensely. So that's one thing which I would say people can definitely consider if they're looking for a long career in this function. The area of program management, which is, I guess, a little hard to get training on, and the reason I'm saying it is hard is because I have been in many courses, related to things like, conflict, negotiation, people-related skills, etc. And you realize that, while you can always learn in a course, but the real deal is actually being able to practice it, and that's the thing which is harder to come by. And in that element, I would say, learning to understand your stakeholders and their needs are very, very important if you want to succeed in the program function, because the outcome or the success of the program is typically going to come from understanding how different stakeholders like to work. Over the years, many of us have built styles or preferences of how we like to work. But I can tell you, every time I have been on a new program, either myself or someone from my team, when we're working with a new group of stakeholders, there's always something new which comes up about people, and you realize with this person, I might need to change the style of working. So that flexibility, I think, in terms of how you work with stakeholders, understanding their needs, becomes very important. And I think that's one area of program management where some of us, at least for myself, I would say that is definitely true in the past. It's an area where I think we should focus and learn more, or try to consciously focus more and get better at, because it is a very important element for getting the success on the program. If not for success, I will also suggest a very, sort of a selfish reason, over here, why stakeholder management skill becomes very important, right? While you're working, everybody also has a lot of appraisal related goals, right? So I can tell you, from experience and having seen that a lot around me, that the road to your appraisal goals, okay, will definitely pass through the cubicle of your stakeholders, right? So if getting success on the program may not seem a lot motivating, at least for those selfish reasons, I think you must consider honing your skills in stakeholder management. And you can do courses, etc., but it's also a very learned skill with a lot of mistakes and understanding or changing things as you go along.
Great. So some things that come up is learn on the job as well. While you do your certifications, which is very important, there's also learning on the job.
Right. Absolutely.
Totally agree. Thanks, Anand. So Sumit, for you, how can a program manager continue to grow and remain relevant in their org over a period of time? That's something we all want to know.
Yeah, important question, and I think many program managers who start early do realize or do start thinking about that piece as well. So I think I would talk more about in terms of how to go there, right? It's and where to go is there are different options available, right? As we just talked, that program managers are doing everything. They understand business, they understand technology, And of course, just being an enabler will not take you to a larger piece, because as an enabler, you can run some programs, but can you own something is very important. So as you rise up the ladder, it's important to start owning things up. So I tell my team that you are the mini CEOs of the org. Nobody is going to ask you what's happening. You're going to, of course, tell to stakeholders, you're going to update stakeholders, but when you are the mini CEO, you don't have to worry about thinking that who's going to ask you. You are going to you're going to be the person who's going to ask questions, right? Manage budget, manage resources, even tell them that go to the HR team, help them out, get resources onboarded, make the policies, because program managers are interacting with everybody, right? They're not interacting with just one vertical. So you can help HR also by giving them feedback on what's happening on the ground, what are the right things to do in the system as well. So by doing all that, what I mean to say is that you understand business, you understand tech, you understand a lot about product. So I've seen many program managers go towards a product role, a CPO or vertical business head, which would mean that the road towards the CBO. I usually do see that because of the execution focus that happens, the CEO role kind of a role does fit in the long term for a different organization, right? Now, these are all big things, right? From in terms of where to go in the long term. But as a program manager, you are able to see all those roles. You are able to interact with them. You are able to understand what's happening around. So if somebody is stronger in tech, VP engineering kind of a role also fits in, right? So yes, you will not remain in a core tech program management role for a very long time. After that, you have to choose in terms of where do you want to, every role merges up at the top, right? So you have to see that whether you want to take a business, you want to take a product, you want to take up execution. I don't know, is that the question you were asking, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's also about horizontal or vertical growth, and it's a choice that the program manager makes at mentioned.
Yes, and you can continue to grow your teams, and as the organization grows, the team also grows. That always happens. After some time, as an organization, I would like to see program managers take up business as well, because that is what they understand really well. They know exactly what they should be doing, so they can really contribute well to the business.
Right, and the best part about being a program manager is you have an end-to-end view on things.
Yes, so as we said, you exactly know where the resources are, what makes you click as an organization, where your roadmap is, what your strategy is, and over the years you've started contributing towards it as well. So all those are open, and take your heart pick where it goes, and also what your talent is. This is one role where you'll get to experience everything.
Totally agree. Right. Thanks a bit. So Meghna, what's the advice you can give to people who want to become technical program management professionals?
Okay. Well, this is definitely very, satisfying career for sure. But before anyone jump into the career, a couple of things to understand that, this is a type of a program management role when we talk about a technical program management. So understand before you jump into this role that what is the difference between a program management and a technical program management? Because this is a very highly complex role where T stands for technical. So yes, you're not required to code or test, but you really need to understand what it takes to be a technical program manager. Now, TPMs are a bridge between the technical team and the business team. So you really need to understand technology as well as business. And you should be in a position to kind of communicate technical information to non-technical users and vice versa. So before you jump into this role, someone should be really understanding what they are jumping into, but definitely certifications to help make that decision that this is something really someone enjoys doing it. Another thing, someone early in the career, they need to understand building a trust is a key to success. Now build a two-way trust with your stakeholder, because building that relationship of trust eventually will come openness, and that's what makes any program successful. Couple of other areas, of course, managing your or analyzing your project health daily. And trust me, it's super easy. Just follow the playbook. Managing your project health is easy. Set the SMART goal. Make sure you're aware about the scope creep. You really on top of your goals and the risk and the dependencies. Make everything extendable. So these are the couple of things when you have to manage your project health daily. But in order to do all of that, one needs to be really expert in the tools that companies using. You really need to know all your tools very well. Where teams will come to you, teams will come and ask you for the report. Be reachable, be always accessible to your team. Again, most of the program management, you will hear that communication, and it is definitely not overrated to be, because that's a very critical part of a program management role. You really need to know what to communicate, how to communicate, what is the frequency of communication, because that becomes the key to success again. Because if you have the information you haven't shared, that means your stakeholders are unaware. So communication is definitely key to successful any program management. Definitely last but not the least, early in the career, make sure you find a mentor. I have learned very late in my career what a critical role a mentor can play. Find a mentor that will definitely help you, get your career, in a good way. It will push you to your, to your limits. So find the right mentor for you. So these are the few things definitely, it can help anyone be a successful team.
That is really wonderful insights, Meghna. Thanks a lot. Right, so I have a question to everyone. So just wanted to check from each one of you on your experience or lessons learned from the pandemic. What we know is every employee has become an island today. So what is the key for a successful program when they are remotely located, or in times of the pandemic? So TV, I'd like to start with you if you want to take that one.
Hey, sure, Manoj. No, I think the last 18 months have been really tough for everyone, and it's something that for the first time we have seen, and hopefully for the last time, that a change of this magnitude has impacted each one of us simultaneously, and I think it has made us a little more empathetic towards each other, because in the normal circumstances we don't tend to think twice that somebody else on the other side of the call might be going through some personal challenges, and here everybody is going through the same emotional and personal struggles, and some of us have been more unfortunate in terms of being affected directly by COVID as well. So I think this has really brought up on the surface the importance of us treating people as the first class citizens and process as a second class citizen. So that need has never been more pronounced in my view. So that's the first key learning there. And what has worked for me personally is I built the whole strategy operations team here at Walmart. We literally were like a couple of people before COVID, and we built the entire team during the COVID time. What really worked for me well was connecting with my team members. Especially I remember when we had a new team members, I would spend every day half an hour with them, every single one of them who joined my team. So really working with them without any agenda, being there for them, solving each and every small issues there, helping people connect and find a place in the whole system, because otherwise everybody ends up being a digital island. And I think that's really the bigger challenge for us, that all of us are sitting away from each other. We are missing those micro meetings, as I like to call it, micro interactions, when we have it in the water cooler or even in the restrooms or in the hallways. I think those are really the casualties of the whole working from home mode. And I think it's important for us to really overcompensate that with more communication, more direct lines where you are available. So like for me as a manager, it's been available to my team members literally 24/7 on various things, whether it's a Zoom chat, whether it's a WhatsApp, whether it's an email, whether it's anything. If they need something, you are available to them. So I think it's really being as a leader available to them, create the opportunities, have enough formal and informal conversations, involve the team members, ask them for them to really take charge of some of those things. Those are some of the things that has worked very well for me, Manoj. But I would love to hear from other panelists also.
Sure. Anand, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Totally agree. I think the pandemic situation has been a new one for everybody to deal with. And the loss of that face-to-face connect or in-person connect, I think definitely is something new that everybody has had to deal with. On the positive side, though, I would like to also add from my experience that at least for a lot of the stuff that I have been working on, I feel the efficiency has gotten better because of people just being able to sometimes join in remotely, not having to spend time driving up to office and things like that, which in Bangalore I think can be quite substantial. So I do see some of that positive aspect as well. Overall, I feel whether you're working face to face or even for many people, they're working with their co-workers who are spread out across the world. I think what is important is to have the communication lines open. And that's something you have to figure out how to do. Whether is it a Slack communication, which keeps you connected with what the other person is doing or when they need help, or is it by responding to some email or by just calling up somebody or being part of meetings where you could be meeting up your team members, not necessarily with an agenda, but possibly just meeting up in a more sort of a happy hours mode where you could still be drinking and talking, but possibly not together in some location out there in Bangalore, but probably doing that from your desk as well. I think that is very important that people connect, and especially for new people whom you onboard onto your team, you need to take, I think we all feel there's a need to take special care to make sure they feel more a part of the company and get to see, hear, connect with other folks on a regular basis, like TV mentioned, right? And feel that connect versus feeling they've joined somewhere, but there is possibly no direct connect except for work related conversations with a lot of the folks out there.
Thanks, Anand. Sumit, what are your views?
Yeah, I think TV and Anand covered them. What I would say is we talked about that informal interaction, right? I just want to build up on that a bit and just tell you what we have been doing and what has worked for us. We have set up informal meeting sessions and catch-ups, because usually what happens on this online meetings is that there are many people who are not switching on a video, let's say, or due to any personal reason, and that's right as well. But we do set up those sessions where the new people are acquainted with each other. We talk about family, friends, the very same way that we have a tea session. We have a chai pe charcha online, which is like completely, we tell that this is not about work at all. Just let's meet each other. Sometimes it gets boring as well if you do it too often, but it does work well, because then you come to know about families, friends, people introduce their kids on the video. So, and then you build up on that. So that connect, which was missing earlier, you have to actually make an effort to take that time out of the calendar and say that this is the informal chat. And importantly, also try to have meetings which are spaced out, in the sense that have a 15-minute break or 10-minute break before the next meeting starts, for you and for others as well. So because if usually otherwise people are jumping across meetings and the only thing they talk about is work, right? So if you have some space out between the meetings, that also helps. For us, these informal sessions are really helping, at least as a feedback perspective. Let's see how it goes. But we do feel more connected with the team. There are many people we have not met physically even once. So they've showed us their videos of their home. They've showed us what's outside. And sometimes they just open up. So it's very important to have that connect. And that is what the team is all about. The organization is all about. So I think that is needed. And we have to really take it as a work that we have to do that as well.
I totally agree with your social meetings. And it's worked wonders for me as well. It really helps bond with the team better.
Sure.
And finally, Meghna, your views, please.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree more about the communication, because it has definitely taught us how important it is to communicate communicate regularly. And sometimes, we need to look at those employees who are either very quiet ones or the introverted. When you're in the one room, it becomes easy and kind of, nudge them to speak up. No videos sometimes, and sometimes, people have, because we've literally gone into each other's house and bedrooms and offices and living room, right? So we have to kind of consider that and make sure that we are still making sure that everyone is connected. And couple of ways that we are kind of trying out in our place is make the goal setting much more clear. A lot of things used to get discussed during meetings. A lot of things will get discussed during, break room chat, which we miss sometimes in, in the online world. So make it very explicit, call it out, document it, remove the ambiguity. Then it makes it very easy that there is no ambiguity and we understand. Again, part of the communication, that document it but communicate it over and over again. So removing that ambiguity definitely helped us, that, how you define your objectives and, go through OKR setting and all that. So it made it very, very evident that we really need to communicate more. We really need to communicate very frequently. Have a deeper discussion. If needed, sometimes a 30-minute meeting is not enough. What we said, let's take it offline, but there's nothing offline anymore. What do you mean by take it offline, right? Set up another follow-up meeting. If you need to discuss with someone specifically, set up that, meeting to have a deeper discussions. So some of this, some of these tactics did help, but again, it definitely comes down to have empathy for each other and make sure that you kind of, look at the personal side of it sometimes before the processes. So people over processes always takes it. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Great. I have a lot of questions pouring in the Q&A window, so I'm going to just take a couple of them. So the first one is TPMs are drivers, and without this function, things don't move. However, the success of a rollout generally is credited to engineering and product. So what's the best practice to ensure that they are given due credit and also keep them motivated? So I'll pass this question on to Sumit first.
I kind of, I'll say that TPMs have more visibility than anybody else. I kind of disagree because you are managing the stakeholders, you are talking to the CXOs, you're talking to everybody else. So basically, you're the face. Accolades, as you said, right? CEOs don't get accolades. They don't get accolades within the company. You don't look for appreciation inside. The appreciation comes from the product launch. The appreciation comes from what's happening to the product itself. Even if you achieve something, it's your duty and your total job to give those accolades out to the right set of people so that they know that this is the right thing to do. Having said that, in my organization, at least over the past 2 years or 3 years, out of the total 5 CEO award winners, 2 have been program managers. So it's not that that effect is not noticed or effect is not seen. We would say that from program management point of view, send out those launch emailers, send out information about what you are doing, bring the tech team under I would say just the opposite, right? Give out accolades. The more you give them out, the more you receive them as well, because it's your job to make the system function, and it will automatically come. And for program management leaders, yes, for your own teams, when you are having those informal discussions, the formal discussions, that is where you can give that appreciation and highlight what they have done. So that comes with all leaderships, right? You don't take the accolades, you take the blame, and for whatever accolades come in, you have to pass it on. So for program managers, all of you are leaders, and that is your job. Sorry for being that.
Yeah, that's a different perspective. That's very interesting. Okay, the next question I'll probably hand it over to Meghna. So while the TPM role seems evolving over time, we suggest your view. There is always a risk of being measured on perceptions alone and goals, because TPM role is being looked at a one-stop shop for all problems. So wanted to listen to your views.
Well, definitely. I mean, see, TPM, as we were saying, right? There are a lot of tasks. It's a huge, long laundry list before we launch any product or even services, right? So yes, there's a lot of things come in TPM's bucket. We have looked at it. We are the superhuman beings that we can do almost everything. So yes, I do agree that it becomes a one-stop for any problem, and we need to look at it take it in a very positive way. That the reason why it has come to that, that stage, that organizations have realized that we can do almost any task. Yes, we are not coders or testers anymore, but definitely when things need to execute or when things need to get to the, success, they know we can get the work done. They know we are connected to each and every team across the team. There are multiple teams. I mean, starting from inception to launch, it takes a lot. It literally takes a village to launch a product, right? So we can connect with multiple people. We know how we have built a relationship. We have a network to get the work done. So this is definitely a positive way to look at it. That why we have become that one stop for almost anything that comes our way. So I would take it in a take it that there's a even a long way to go, but it is definitely a positive way to look at it.
Perfect. Okay. So TV, I have an interesting question for you. What are some suggestions for program managers who work closely with CXOs who normally have limited time as well as a shorter attention span, given their heavy engagements?
Sure. No, I think it's a definitely interesting idea to work closely with the CXOs. The way I would look at it is that first of all, obviously, you have to expand your horizon and really understand the vocabulary and the metrics that CXOs care for. The challenge that I see is a lot of times as program managers, we are in love with our metrics and frameworks and certifications and what have you, and we don't really upgrade it. I mean, I talk a lot to people in the agile community. I've been very active in that, and it's like I'm still dealing with the story points and what have you. Whereas if you go to the CFO, you tell the story points and CFO looks at you and says, so what, right? I mean, the key thing is really how do you deliver the business value? So the first important thing is to really up level your game and be able to connect those metrics to the high level strategic objectives there. Start telling the stakeholders how the work you do is really changing the game for the organization there, and that itself is more powerful than anything else that you can think of, because that will actually you are going to self invite yourself into the boardroom and the conversations there, because if you keep dealing with the quote unquote lower order metrics of value, which are more of efficiency. I mean, like for example, I have a CI/CD pipeline, or I have reduced my integration time from 4 hours to 20 minutes. Like, so what are you doing with the reduced time? That to me is more important there. How many innovations are you putting out on the table? What is the top line metrics are you changing there? I think those are some of the key conversations, Manoj, in my view, where the program managers should be changing the game, and that will actually more than anything else invite them to those conversations and become of value to work with the CXOs there. So I think it's a two-way street. We have to up level our game and we have to change the conversations there, but also understand, more importantly, I mean, how many program managers actually would be able to understand the P&L statement, for example, to know how the company is performing, or what is my TAT there, or how customers are really, the NPS is really impacting my bottom line, and so on. I think those are key things I would start from, Manoj.
Perfect. Thanks, Tathagat. Right, I'll take one more question. We talked. I want to know how the program management principles extend to portfolio management and how does a TPM support the portfolio of a company? So Anand, do you want to take that one?
Right. I think as you start working on portfolios, there are opportunities to bring together multiple initiatives that may be of focus for the org, and try to look at the overall space in which you are working. Not think of it as something very narrow, but look at what can be a broader objective and what are the other things that you could possibly do in that space to have a larger impact, right? For example, you could start off on a program which might be related to, for example, improving something in, say, the finance domain, right? It could be a very specific project where you're trying to change something. But a lot of times, as it happens, while you're working with certain teams, you suddenly realize that there are other areas of opportunity that the company can benefit from. So to go back to what TV was saying, right, to up-level the conversation where, say, you're working with, for example, a CFO or somebody like that, and they may not even be aware of some of the lower level realities, which might be great opportunities for a program manager or a TPM person working in that area to sort of start having those conversations where you're not really looking for somebody to come and give you a roadmap, but in many cases working with the top leaders to sort of help them even form the roadmap, right? Because typically they might be getting views only from certain sources or people with whom they are having a lot of interactions. New eyes, new people getting into a particular domain and working with different teams always have an opportunity to offer some new insights. And there are a lot of opportunities, I feel, to take something, look at the broader picture and see how it can become a larger portfolio sort of a engagement versus trying to do something very, very specific and get out. It's very much possible that what you're doing could be a very pinpointed problem solving, but with the program experience over the years, I think there are always areas or opportunities where things could be broadened out for a larger impact in the organization itself.
Thanks, Anand. That really helps. All right, perfect. So I think for now, I'll wrap up our discussion for you. Thank you very much, Anand, Sumit, PB, and Meghna for attending the session. So I'll hand it back to Sri and Raju.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, folks. So you are leaders and you are the people we aspire to become someday. It is really nice to hear your opinions on, how to lead a team, how to form a team, how to upskill ourselves. So even commonsensical things and some really, pointed things like how to deal in the pandemic. I think while we were all aware that we need to have these socials and parties, Meghna, your point really resonated saying, be very clear about the OKRs and the goal settings, because we cannot leave anything to that water cooler conversation anymore. Nobody's gonna, just come walk by and say, what was that about? Nobody's asking for clarifications. Every discussion is a call now. And while we are all saying Zoom fatigue, we are also saying stuff like take some phones, some calls, some Zoom calls on your phone, because Zoom need not be a laptop. Walk when you take a call, right? So mental health, team bonding, all of that is important. And the path to growth, having a strong foundation, whichever course it is, having a good mentor, because nobody teaches you like a mentor. So you have role models, you learn from them, and then you have mentors who teach you unselfishly, right? A role model might feel threatened by you if you start outshining them, but a mentor is invested in you. And I think I would like to think that is the key takeaway for our growth. Find that mentor who's invested in you, that coach who will take you to the next level. Raju, what would you take away from this discussion?
Yeah, I think a lot of good insights. So the game-changing aspects of program management, I would say. I think a couple of basic things are about like constant learning, right? So there is nothing if you are invested in learning, so that's when the growth happens, right? So that's the one thing very clearly came up. And definitely upskilling as per the current needs of the industry and the needs of your stakeholders, because as you are changing programs, you will be seeing different stakeholders, and then you need to flex your personality styles to adapt to that programs, right? That's another thing came up. And also at the end of the day, what is that value you are creating to the your program and the organization? If you start thinking about in those lines, I think I'm sure you will be changing a lot of games in the future. So that all and all, I think it's a wonderful session. Thank you for the panelists and our moderator Manoj.
Right. And it is the time that audience has been waiting for. Folks, we have the quiz. Please look at the chat. There is a link provided. Would request you to please click on it. We will help you walk through the quiz, right? And the first screen usually has your name and your email ID. We need the email ID because if you win, we need a way to contact you. Do not skip that step, please. We are not doing this on chat, so please open the quiz. Yesterday, so many folks answered on the chat. Does not help us. So guys, I hope you're ready. The link is open and you have entered in your details. Shall we move to the questions, please?
Yeah.
All right. So this is the first question. We are helping you walk through the quiz. Which of these best describes program management function? Anybody can be a program manager. Program management is a horizontal activity while business units are vertical entities. Program management is an optional team for an organization. We don't need program managers. Engineering managers can do it all of the above. I think it's a fairly simple one, guys. I hope you are clicking away. Let's go to the next one, please.
I'll read that one. We are giving time to answer.
Yeah. Lydia, shall we move? Okay, the quiz refuses to move. Let me see, maybe we need to do some magic words. Stakeholder management, communications, open channels. I'm calling all the program management mantras, hoping it will help us here. Not working. Let me try one more time. Lydia, can you hear us? Oh, there we are. Yeah. See, all of that is coming out here.
Yeah, yes. Metaphor is my favorite. So best metaphor for a program manager. So program manager is like a goalkeeper in the football. He's like a captain in the football team. Or is he like a coach in the football team? Or program manager is like a quarterback in football team. It's like here, I think maybe look at as American football. So all of the above.
Right. So the hint is if you were there in the first session and if you heard what Mohit said, you might know the answer. All right, there we are. Yeah. So it is truth or dare, true or false. Which of these do you think is correct? It is important to have a mentor. T in TPM adds to the complexity of the role. Empathy is essential to be a successful program manager. Learn, unlearn, relearn. Cycle shapes a good program manager. All of the above. Next, please.
Which emotional traits help is managing high pressure programs? Clear communication channels, building an environment of trust, inside out thinking, stakeholder expectations management, all of the above.
Right. I think these are too good and too simple. Next one, please. Yes. So what are the key traits needed for an effective program management or for a good program manager, right? Stakeholder management, emotional intelligence, strategic partners, adaptive mindset, all of the above. Okay. I think we might have one more. Lydia, do we have one more? Maybe I should do KBC style, computer G. Yeah.
Lock kiya jaye.
Right. Do you want to take that?
Yeah. How do you relate to the term game changers from the just ended session? Open to trying for new ideas, orchestrating a course change in the middle of the program, rising from the failures, deliver in spite of crisis, all of the above.
Yep. I think that is a wrap up of the quiz. Yes, Computer G agrees with me. Thank you so much. This is year 1, day 2 of Think at Walmart. Hope to see you again next year.
Volume. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we really hope to see you again next year. You have been a wonderful audience. So yeah, we are starting a trend and you will see edition 2. So this was edition 1. Keep our fingers crossed. Keep waiting for next year. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. And just remember one thing. Yeah. What is the one thing you wanted to take it from the session and follow it along? That's how you learn. Take care.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you.